Welcome back, all you lore whores, to Lorehammer, the 40K podcast, where we talk about all things, so supple when it comes to 40K. We got Christian joining me. Welcome.
Hey, the wingman of wingmans to talk about wingmans.
Yeah, you've helped me pick up 40K lore and the odd woman, too.
And 40K chicks, too.
Those don't exist. Let's not get carried away and start lying to people. Yo, James, what's good? You're with us here.
I'm here. I'm going to be pushing buttons and harassing you in the chat.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. So this is our second live stream, and I apologize for the first one. I tried going into the chat room, and I was on YouTube, and I'm like, where's the fucking comment section? So I couldn't even follow my own instructions on how to get into the chat room that I tell people. I don't know how that makes me feel, but yeah, so you guys can come join us on Patreon for a couple bucks. You can join our live stream every other Friday night. Our next one is at 8:30 on July 12th, and you just join Patreon and we'll send out a link, and then you can click that. There's a cool chat room. So we're going to be a lot more engaged with the chat room this time now that I'm actually looking at comments. Vulcan does indeed live.
In all our
a couple other things. Yeah.
And nowhere else.
That's the good thing about a perpetual. They'll never be able to fully leave you. They're just coming back.
Like a bad memory.
So the other,
or a bad thing.
like a bad memory. A couple other things about Lorehammer. We're working out all the new audio kind of technical things too. So if there's a little more audio issues, we're still working on it. I have a headset ordered and I got Starlink ordered, so those should help out the last couple difficulties. But yeah, I think audio kind of technical things too. Oh yeah, I've got a back feed now. There we go. Cool. And yeah, the last thing about the live stream is at the end of the show, we're going to have a call-in guest. So if you're interested in calling in and just talking Malcador or the Sigillite, or, just whatever, if you want to yell to James about something, you can do that too. So
yeah,
you killed my cat last week.
All audio issues are my fault. So James' complaints now includes all technical complaints.
Yeah. So like I said, join us 8:30 July 12th for the next live stream on Patreon. Speaking of Patreon, we've had a lot of support since coming back. I'm going to quickly read some names since I didn't do it last episode. Thank you guys so much for kind of supporting the comeback of Lorehammer. I'll read off these names: Glintlock, Warjet, Pitty, Blake, Viterio, Terry the Templar. Heck yeah. I'm glad he's here for us, man. Without his support, it would not be the same.
It wouldn't even be worth doing the show.
Wouldn't even be worth it. Nick, Geraldo, our Allfather, Guardsman, David, Joseph, Downfall, WYK, Nikki, Don, Spencer, Kyle, Jay, Barat, Alessandro, Leonidas, Scott, Kyle, Aaron, Samuel. And we were gone for 2 years. So thanks for anyone who joined during that time too and stuff. We really appreciate the support. Here's the crazy thing, man. You guys like Lorehammer. I see those download numbers. I know what's happening. If everyone just donated $1, we could get James and Christian retired. We could do full-time Lorehammer episodes.
We could all join Mark and Panama and do it live together. Have no technical issues.
Yeah, no, it's a joke, but at the same time, if everyone gave $1, that would be a reality. You two would have full-time jobs working for Lorehammer. So let's make that the goal, people. If you just have $1 to throw our way this month, it honestly will change these boys' lives and make sure you have more 40K content. Okay, two other final things. Listener Lore, go check out the Listener Lore podcast. And it's a separate feed. Got a lot of stories over there. Want to submit lorehammerpodcast@gmail.com. And the final thing, our Discord is bopping and active. And you want to go hang out there. We're going to be doing contests again eventually. Come join us and hang out. Man, I'm just looking at the chat room and it's cool. There's people in there. Bring back Trevor Buzak is comment, and I don't know if you guys are ready for that.
You don't have the budget for it yet.
No, we got to afford. So we're still paying off Kermit the Frog the one time we had him.
Years ago. Fuck. Those damn residuals.
Years ago. Those damn residuals. All right, boys, let's talk 40K. We're in it. Today's episode is Malcador the Sigilite. I couldn't quite resist going back and dipping our toes in the old Earth setting for a hot minute.
Yeah, hopefully we come back a couple of times because there's a lot of content to mine there.
Yeah, I feel like too a bunch of people sent me books of stuff that's been written in that setting, and a lot more has actually been written in it. But yeah, Malcador the Sigilite, very cool guy, likes to go around abduct children, turn them into genetically modified soldiers, and pretty fun guy, really, I think.
I think that's an okay hobby for a lot of decent folks. I support it.
China does that right now.
America too, bigger exporter of children, number 1 in the world. Malcador, 40K boys, 40K. Malcador Sigilite. Let's dive into this character. Man, he's such a big character. When I was writing notes, it was kind of just like, man, what didn't this guy get his fingers into? Last we talked about the Emperor and Thunder Warriors, and this is another one of those key components, key characters in the 40K universe that everyone always hears about, but you might not know that he got up to a lot of things. So yeah, let's dive into her. Malcador the Sigillite. Malcador the Sigillite, also known as Malcador the Hero, by decree of the Emperor of Mankind, was a formidable and enigmatic psyker, as well as a scholar of dark renown. He served as the Imperial Regent during the Emperor's absences from Terra and held the sinister title of the first Grand Master of Assassins during the blood-soaked errors of the Great Crusade in Horus Heresy. By the dawn of the 31st millennium, Malcador had endured over 6,700 years of existence. Recalling his date of birth with eerie precision, his title,
There's an implication there.
Yeah.
He remembers being born.
It was warm and wet. It was blinding light. His title, the Sigilite, meaning seal bearer in the ancient Terran dialect, reflected the profound trust and esteem the Emperor placed in him, granting Malcador the power to act with the Emperor's full authority in his absence. The title also hinted at Malcador's mysterious past with the Sigilites, an ancient and secretive order dedicated to the gathering and preserving of humanity's greatest cultural artifacts from the age of technology, before the age of strife casts a shadow over the eerie interstellar civilization. Malcador, likely the last surviving member, carried the weight of the shadowy legacy. As a psyker of terrifying power, second only to the Emperor himself, Malcador could communicate telepathically across the void of space. He was a close advisor to the Emperor during the brutal Unification Wars and was instrumental in the founding of the Adeptus Administratum, the official Assassinorum, the dark and foreboding entities that would become the Imperial Inquisition, and the Grey Knights. In secret, he served as the first Grand Master of Assassins, crafting the foundations of this lethal organization. Malcador is also remembered for delivering the Grim Chaplain Edict at the Council of Nicaea during the Great Crusade. This edict birthed the chaplains, a new order of the Space Marine, tasked with maintaining discipline and order within the Legion's Astartes. The chaplains vigilantly monitored. The chaplains vigilantly and violently monitored for deviations from the imperial truth and enforced the ban on psychic powers, with violations resulting in severe and brutal punishments for the Astartes librarians who defiled the Emperor's command. During the climatic siege of Terra, Malcador willingly took the Emperor's place on the Golden Throne, using his immense psychic powers to hold back the demonic tide of warp spawn that sought to invade Terra through the Emperor's Webway project beneath the Imperial Palace. This act of immense and grim sacrifice, which Malcador knew would lead to his death, earned him the title Malcador the Hero from the Emperor. Malcador's selfish act allowed the Emperor to confront the Arc-Traitor Horus aboard the flagship, the Vengeful Spirit, in orbit. The Emperor ultimately defeated and slew Horus, bringing the Horus Heresy to a prolific and bloody conclusion. When the mortally wounded Emperor was returned to the Imperial Palace, Malcador used the last vestiges of his energy to sustain the Emperors long enough for him to give his final commands to the Primarch Rogel Dorn before being interred in the Golden Throne. Once Malcador was moved from the throne, his body disintegrated into ash, completing his final grim duty to the Emperor, who he served above all else.
All right, thanks for joining us, guys.
So that's
the end of our episode.
Yep, there's my 15 pages of notes. Most of it was just redacted, so that's always good. Yeah, when I read this and when I was doing the episode notes, I'm like, holy fuck, I didn't know that about him, or I didn't know he did that one too. And what did this guy found?
Yeah, like he is the architect of the Imperium that you know. even from early on, like even something as basic as the administratum, like that is what makes the Imperium function. And then you have all the specialist roles like the Inquisition and even like chaplains are Malcador.
Yeah. There hasn't been a great heresy since chaplains, so they just
He knew what he was doing.
Well, okay, so the other thing too that's crazy is like how powerful of a psyker he is, because how many people have to be how many psykers have to be sacrificed to keep the emperor like going, and he was just doing it on his lonesome because he's such a G. So like he's a ridiculous psyker too, which is one of the
and even with
things.
Astral communication or whatever, most astropaths get soul bound and like the eye burnt out and all that kind of stuff. And I don't think that same process, the soul binding, happened to Malcador that happens to all the other ones.
No, it wouldn't have to. And he can like project across the Imperium without any relays or anything like that. Like he can telepathically communicate from one end of the galaxy to the other, which is also like rarely powerful. Like he's probably second only to the Emperor in psychic ability, which is saying something. And maybe Magnus.
Yeah, that one could be a toss-up, depends on who. But, you have 6,700 years of experience. Like, I think that trumps even the natural ability that Magnus would have, just during the time that they were both alive anyhow.
Yeah.
I think one of the craziest things that kind of got picked up on here was the word Sigillite and where that comes from. And we'll get a little more into it. But the Sigillites were this ancient order of people who went around, collected technology, relics, artifacts, all these kind of ancient things, and safeguarded them. So just think about his relationship with the Emperor and this safeguarding technology.
And safeguarding of knowledge, too.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing, too, just before we move on that point, I'm not great with math here, but where does that put him timeline-wise? Like, certainly into Old Knight. In real history, he's not as old as the Emperor for certain, but he is like 6,700 years old. So he saw like the first, not empire, but whatever humanity had across the stars. During like the I want to call it the Age of Iron, but no, like when the Men of Iron revolted and before Old Knight and all that stuff. Like he saw humanity at its peak.
Yeah, he could have been around for like the Men of Iron and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like he knows a lot of stuff that's even still kind of mysterious in modern 40K, which a lot of the mystery is being stripped away. He even knows the dark stuff from back there. So just interesting.
Do you guys think he went by Mal, or did he make them say Malcador the Sigillite every time?
Malcador the hero.
Oh my God.
No, he was already dead when he got that. The Emperor Maitri, everyone calls him the hero. All right, I'll dive into the next section. Unity and the Great Crusade. During the conquest of Terra in the late 30th millennium, the Emperor gathered about him trusted lieutenants, entrusting them with tasks befitting men of great status. Most of these loyal servants hailed from the ranks of the Terran nobility and the formidable Space Marine legions. Malcador was a unique exception among these warriors, for he was not a soldier, but a learned man, with the solemn bearing of a priest. From the early years of the brutal wars of unification, Malcador stood ever present at the Emperor's side, often engaging in psychic combat alongside him. His origins remain shrouded in mystery, known only to the Emperor himself. When the Emperor was merely another Terran warlord, it was Malcador who first suggested he adopt the grand title of Emperor of Mankind, a suggestion that would shape the fate of humanity. In truth, Malcador was a member, perhaps the last survivor, of the ancient and clandestine Sigillites. The secretive order sought to preserve the most potent and significant artifacts of human history from the chaos and destruction of the Age of Strife. The Sigillites' fortress-like headquarters in the shadowy Himalayan mountains would become the foundation upon which the Emperor would build the mighty Imperial Palace, a dark citadel of power. According to Primarch Jagtai Khan, Malcador's true identity was uncovered by his brother Horus. Horus revealed to the Khan that Malcador was originally known as Brahm al-Qador, a perpetual like the Emperor, and was infamous as a cursed wanderer and the last and greatest techno-mage of Terra. The Khan also claimed that Malcador and the Sigillites had committed unspeakable atrocities during the dark era of Old Night, memories of which were later erased by the Emperor and Malcador himself to conceal their dreadful past. Whatever his true origins, Malcador donned the hooded robes of a simple Terran administrator. Blessed with unnaturally long life, he was surrounded by rumors and whispers. Some believed he was the first psyker to undergo the soul-binding ritual, while others speculated he was a distant kinsman of the Emperor himself. Regardless of the truth, Malcador was considered a man of unparalleled wisdom, held in special regard by the Emperor. His place among the superhuman Primarchs as an advisor was a testament to his earned respect and status. Malcador was eventually tasked with overseeing the administration of the Emperor's vast imperial palace, managing the affairs of newly conquered Terra. As the Great Crusade advanced, his power and influence expanded, becoming the overseer of the imperial tithe and the chief of the nascent Council of Terra and its sprawling administratum. As the Primarchs were rediscovered during the Great Crusade, the Emperor's attention was increasingly consumed by leading the imperial forces. Malcador was left behind on Terra to oversee the bureaucratic machinery of the rapidly expanding Imperium, accompanied by the Primarch of the Space Wolves, Leman Russ. This bond grew as Malcador acted as a mentor to the warlord from Fenris, helping him adjust to the Imperium's advanced culture. That's interesting that he was almost kind of adopted by Malcador. I don't know if their relationship would be like even a father-son. That might be too far. Maybe like a mentor and mentee. But it's funny that Leman Russ is too feral for them to just like reintegrate into society. They have to hand him over to Malcador. Malcador's opinions carried the weight of law within the Imperium, his insights guiding many of the galaxy's greatest heroes. His respect for human history and vast knowledge made him a living link to humanity's lost golden age during the age of technology, reminding the Emperor of the perils and glories of the past. Among Malcador's most treasured possessions are two ancient paintings rescued by the Sigillites from the Age of Strife's devastation, the enigmatic Mona Lisa by Leonardo da Vinci and the haunting Sunflowers by Vincent van Gogh, displaying in his personal chambers as relics of a forgotten time. During the Great Crusade, Malcador often served as the Emperor's primary representative, acting in his stead when the Emperor was unavailable. His presence preceded the Emperor's arrival, ensuring that the Master of Mankind intervened only if Malcador failed to resolve the situation. That's a lot of trust for him to... And he really is like the Emperor's right-hand man, right? Yeah. The wingman of wingmen, as people of our order like to say. One notable instance was the humbling of the Wordbearers Legion in the ruins of Monarchia, 40 solar decades before the Horus Heresy. The Wordbearers were chastised for failing to spread the imperial truth, instead teaching the worship of the Emperor as a god. An enraged Lorgar struck Malcador, sending him flying through the air. Despite suffering several cracked bones, Malcador displayed his resilience and telekinetic abilities, retrieving his staff with a thought. The Emperor's psychic might ultimately force the Wordbearers into compliance, though this incident set Lorgar on a path of ultimate corruption. In a statement to the Magister and Astropath Sibel Niesta, Malcador revealed a grim and secret plan. He claimed that he and the Emperor intended to agitate the Primarchs, turning them against one another to purge those unworthy of leading humanity. This plan aimed to eliminate the Space Marine legions, ensuring only mortal humans would inherit the galaxy. However, the Chaos God's corruption led to the Horus Heresy, unraveling the Emperor's carefully laid plans for humanity's golden age. There is so much to unpack in this very long screed.
Yeah, I was writing notes. I'm like, how do you break all this up? He does so much. So let's just kind of go back to where we started here, and let's talk about the Sigillites again. This mysterious order that has all this lost technology and, you know, who guard it, preserve it, will do anything for it, have committed atrocities with it.
Like atrocities so bad that the Emperor and Malcador like purge any thoughts. Now, is that the Emperor purged the thoughts in Malcador himself? Like, I don't want to remember what I've done, or is it them censoring history so no one else remembers what they've done?
Yeah, it could even be a third option of just like, we cannot allow somebody who knows the secret of AI out or whatever, you know, whatever secret he was.
It would certainly be,
so,
that would be a factor, I'm sure.
Yeah. I just keep kind of thinking like, we kind of know what the Emperor is. Sure, we have rumors and myth and, they might firm it up and then they might take it back away from us. But man, there's this rumor that the Emperor is like a ancient piece of dark age technology. This like not quite human.
Not a being.
Still, yeah. This in between of a human and maybe like a warp creature melded with science and dark magic. Yeah. And I just kind of picture Malcador just kind of finding the Emperor and be like, oh, this is the most powerful thing I've ever found. I got to now dedicate my life to just solely this direction and this aspect.
Even maybe taming it, like if you want to get extreme with it. So that's one of the crazy things too, is that the Emperor was just a warlord on Terra, one of many. And allegedly Malcador is the one who plants the seed of the Imperium and the Emperor himself.
Yeah.
So, I mean, would the Emperor have done any of what he did without Malcador being in the background, like prompting and like whispering in his ear, directing his path, right? Who is the real Emperor here?
Yeah, that's so crazy.
We have examples even at the end statement that you wrote of him directly going against what the Emperor was wanting to do with like some things. He's like, I don't think we should do that with the Astartes. Like,
yeah, which is crazy. Sorry, I'm just reading back through the notes because, like I said, there's so many like one-off sentences. It's like there's so much there. Getting struck by Lorgar is another big deal. Like in passing, sure, whatever, but like that's a Primarch that would like turn you to mist.
Yeah,
if he's the lamest Primarch.
Yeah, the weakest Primarch.
Sorry, I meant lame in the term of weak.
I thought you meant he couldn't walk.
Cool. Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Let's kind of dive into that scene because Malcador is so trusted by the Emperor that at times he is the Emperor's enforcer, where you think maybe the Emperor would send like somebody else, but but you know what happens when you send Layman Rust to a place to chastise somebody.
Burn down the house. I just told you to talk to them.
Exactly. But no, it's like he has so much power that he goes, the word bearers are basically, they've been slowly corrupted by the warp without even really knowing it. They got deep down inside of them this desire to worship something. And they've been spreading the Imperial Creed and spreading like different little cults and stuff that the emperors should be worshipped. And, when the Emperor does find out about that, he sends Malcador to deal with it. He sends Malcador to go deal with a Primarch. And he does.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, like it speaks again to that authority and trust. Like Malcador is also described as like the Emperor's only true friend, right? So even like the Primarchs, like he's immortal by all intents and purposes. Immortal, he is a perpetual, but like a human still, and is still trusted. Yeah, to censure Primarchs. Like his word is as good as the Emperor's word, and the Emperor is cool with that. Like he trusts Malcador enough to be his man, right? Yeah. So it's crazy.
Another kind of thing too is like just going back to like the collection and stuff of Malcador Collector. He has like the
Mona Lisa.
Very distinct paintings, and we get a couple references in the Mechanicus book in Horus Heresy. We get a reference to the Mars lunar rover, and a couple of them. So it's kind of cool that there's a couple more actual direct tie-ins where
like
one day, boys, we'll get there.
I gotta make a painting.
It's canon. Enough. It's canon. We get there.
Yep. We're in 40K. We just gotta wait.
If anyone in France wants to like slap a Lorehammer sticker on the Mona Lisa, I heard vandalizing modern art is like a thing now. So go ahead and mark that one for the future collection. Yeah.
Stop female custodes. Slaps Lorehammer sticker on.
Protest.
Fuck. Another kind of cool thing about Malcador is so he's not necessarily portrayed as like a strong human. So he gets slapped by Lorgar after he kind of chastises him. And then he gets up and like you said, he's just kind of a normal dude. He has a couple broken bones and he still manages to get up and like maintain his composure and like position. And great scene in that book.
Yeah. Break a couple of your bones and see how composed you are.
Yeah. And especially too, since like, Malcador does have the power in my mind to probably just instantly kill Lorgar, like Just shred them atom from atom.
Yeah, even psychically, if not like through true name magic or whatever other mystical knowledge he might have.
Yeah, true name. Yeah, because he's not only like a psyker, like a very good with psychic power. He also really dives into like some of the darker aspects of it.
Yeah. His true name too. We get his true name. I forget it. I can't find it in the notes here, Mark. But if you remember it, but Malcador's true name.
Malcador's true name. Interesting.
Yeah, because Horus was so bothered that he wanted to research everything about Malcador, and, like when he's talking to the can. Yeah.
Cool.
It's in the notes over there, but yeah,
we'll get to it.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
Yeah, I feel like he's everywhere all the time, doing this and doing that. Let's talk about his role as the first Lord of Terra. As the Great Crusade neared its conclusion in the early 31st millennium, the Imperium achieved a monumental victory during the Ulanor Crusade, crushing a colossal Orc empire. With Ulanor reclaimed, the Emperor held a grand triumph, a spectacle of unparalleled glory to honor the valiant warriors.
Same again.
Same thing.
Both is true.
Warriors of the Imperium, both mortal and Astartes. The triumphant event, with the scattering forces of the Imperium gathered in one place for the first time in centuries, was meant to be a bright, enduring memory for the Astartes. It was a high point to remember in which the grim days of the Horus Heresy, when brother would turn on brother and Primarch against Primarch. During this grand triumph, the Emperor made a profound proclamation. His most beloved son, Horus, was to become the Imperial War Master, the supreme commander of the Great Crusade's military forces. While the Emperor announced his intention to return to Terra to pursue a secretive project that would benefit all of mankind. After this declaration, the Emperor returned to the shadowy depths of the Imperial Palace on Terra. The nature of his work was shrouded in mystery, discussed with neither Horus, the Primarchs, nor any of the generals. He summoned certain advisors with Malcador the Sigilite and the fabricated general of Mars, chief among them, issuing them cryptic new commands. The Emperor also convened the First Council of Terra. Unlike the War Council, which Horus now led as War Master, the Council of Terra would handle matters of state and establish imperial law across a myriad of worlds of the Imperium. It was tasked with administrating the imperial tithe and overseeing all civil governance with the Imperium. Malcador, the most trusted advisor, was named the first Lord of the Council and would lead it to the Emperor's absence as the Regent of Terra. Alongside him was the fabricated general, the chief custodian of the Legio Custodians, Constantine Valdor, and the leaders of the Astropath and administrative divisions. Having established this governing body, the Emperor retreated to a secretive subterranean vaults beneath the palace to begin his enigmatic project. However, while the Emperor was sequestered away in his hidden factories, political dissent began to fester. Meanwhile, Horus eagerly embraced his new duties as War Master. Yet beneath the surface, he was dismayed that the Emperor would no longer fight beside his Astartes. The Primarchs, too, were appalled by the formation of the Council of Terra. The Emperor's most loyal followers felt abandoned by their father. They were insulted at not being consulted by the new creation of his new ruling body, and were enraged they had not been offered seats on the council. The more egotistical Primarchs felt betrayed, believing the Emperor had turned their back on them, giving their power to petty mortal administrators and sycophantic tech adepts of Mars. Yeah, crazy. So,
yeah, you go first.
No, you can.
Yeah, no, this touches on like a really cool. I always like this dynamic of the Horus Heresy, where, and I mentioned this kind of in the last episode, where kind of the Astartes that are resentful of humanity, like these inferior beings that are now given over to rule this empire that they forged and they created with their blood. I always love that dynamic, and kind of we glazed over it a little bit even in that last section at the end there of like this whole plot to have the Primarchs kind of challenge each other and like eventually kind of Thunder Warrior the Astartes next too. So that adds an element of like the Astartes were tools for a job. And I don't necessarily think it's with the 40K, everything is kind of like not necessarily canon. You know, you kind of read into it a little bit. But yeah, that the Astartes were just going to be disposed of, and that they're really just mutants. Like, and it's kind of like a Sisters of Battle take, where, you know, they are mutants to do a job, and then that job is done, but they're not really truly human anymore. So how can they also lead a human empire, right?
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
fact that they didn't even get one seat on the High Lords of Terror, not even one.
Yeah.
Well, like there's so much around like the early parts of the Horus Heresy books where like they're starting to talk about, hey, we're going to set up this civilian government and how much resentment that causes, and that's kind of basically what Malcador sets up. And so his kind of like shunning of the Astartes is an element to what kind of causes the Horus Heresy. So like there's an element to Malcador's kind of, I don't know, is it human supremacist, or is it like is it seen like the Astartes are like not good enough and by Malcador? Like he has this very specific, because we talked about how he even is the one who's implanting Imperium. So like Malcador has this vision for what he wants the Imperium to look like, and obviously these warriors that they have are not a part of his vision, at least.
Yeah. In real life, it's a good question too, about like what do you do with soldiers during peacetime, and like what are the potential ramifications of having like a bunch of guys who were bred to fight just sitting around not doing anything.
Well, we talked about that.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say is the flip side to that argument is that Astartes are more than just warriors. They can do a lot of things at a superhuman level.
Like they're master tacticians. They can calculate faster than humans can.
Like the Ultramarines are known as great administrators of their worlds too, because they can, you know, look at issues from a very like, it's like having a genius be like your leader. They have like hyperactive minds as strong as their bodies, right?
Yeah. So is the issue then that Malcador just couldn't or didn't foresee the fact that there would be all these threats to the Imperium after the Great Crusade was done? Or was it that they thought maybe like the Imperial army
was good enough?
Would have been able to fight off that anyway. And they're like, okay, well, we don't need the super soldiers to like make this happen. We can
do it on our own. Yeah. I don't know. But I do think fundamentally, yes, like that human supremacist, like again, the Sisters of Battle, some of the more extreme edge of them believe that Astartes are just mutants, right? And they're not wrong. So like if you are forging an Imperium for mankind, then you see the Astartes as tools to achieve that aim, and that they are like, there's no place for them after the fact.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they're also like a different version of, they're not just like, because if your idea is like, okay, we're going to make an Imperium of mankind. Okay, we have these like things we make to fight, but like they're not really humans at the end of the day. They can't make more of themselves like humans are. They're not even like an evolution of human. They're just like
mutants.
Yeah, there's something we create to fight with. So it kind of makes sense that like maybe once we're done this Great Crusade, we don't need this tool anymore. We can rely on the human empire we built to defend itself, because those are actual human beings. So maybe that's what Malcador's idea was.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting how his kind of vision, what we're gathering, is just even slightly different than the Emperor's, where we're like, yeah, Malcador definitely is more human-centric, where the Emperor is almost like, his main thing is like anti-warp separation. You know, he doesn't necessarily care what human is in charge, you know, as long as you're following the banner. You know, there are abhumans that are allowed and stuff, but yeah, there's that difference where the Emperor is definitely super focused on the warp, and then the Emperor definitely has that vision for humanity and the common man a little more.
Yeah. All right, well then let's sprinkle some seeds of heresy on that cake then. Horus felt deeply slighted when the Emperor retreated to Terra, sequestering himself in his hidden laboratories and dungeons rather than continuing what Horus deemed the true mission, the Great Crusade. Although the title of Imperial War Master was a great honor, it was nothing compared to the sense of abandonment Horus felt as his father turned away from him. Despite his best efforts to carry on the fight and lead the glorious crusade, Horus was troubled by the Emperor's absence. Many Astartes had died, and not once had the Emperor cared enough to honor them with his presence. As news of the Emperor's cryptic pronouncements filtered from Terra, Horus grew ever more estranged from the man he once revered as a father. Increasingly, his thoughts were consumed by the mission to conquer the galaxy and bring greater glory to his Space Marine legions. The War Master joined the 16th Legion, the Sons of Horus, on the moon of Davin. The Legion had ties to Davin's primitive warrior society from their previous conquest of the world solar decades earlier. At the request of the Davinite priests, the moon became their target. Cleansing the moon of its plague-worshipping cultists was a simple task, but Horus was struck down by an assassin's blade, the Kinnebrach Anathane, wielded by Eugene Temba, the Nurgle-corrupted former Imperial planetary governor of Davin. The wound festered, and the medical experts of his legion were unable to treat him. Horus was soon close to death. In desperation, his apothecaries sought the aid of the Davinites. Horus was carried into the temple of the Serpent Lodge, a dying man, and emerged some solar days later, apparently cured and bursting with energy. None knew what profane rites to the dark gods were performed to save him. Horus then commanded that all his senior officers be inducted into the warrior lodges that had secretly proliferated through the 16th Legion since their conquest of Davin. Within a short time, the entirety of Horus's legion was inducted. In the following solar months, Horus extended the Warriors Lodge system to other Space Marine legions, with the blessings of those Primarchs who would later join his cause. Thus, the seed of heresy was first planted in the heart of the Emperor's greatest champion, and within some of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. Horus had listened to the ruinous powers of chaos and made his pact with them while lying unconscious within the temple of the Serpent Lodge. He would deliver the Emperor to them, and they would give them the galaxy. It was a simple bargain, and one that made sense to Horus. Humanity was under dire threat from the demons of the warp, though few recognized the danger. If the Emperor knew, he seemed to ignore it. After his sojourn on Davin, Horus was a changed man. The War Master drew to him those Primarchs he trusted most, meeting with each in turn and corrupting them. After securing the loyalty of nearly 4 full legions of Space Marines, he sought to draw more forces into his web of deceit. Horus dispatched his agents to other legions and began the process of winning over various Imperial commanders and Mechanicum Forge Masters. The latter held positions of authority on the Forge Worlds and controlled the fearsome Titan legions of the Collegia Titanica. With these powerful war machines at his side, Horus believed he might even force the Emperor to submit to his rule without further bloodshed.
Yeah, he was wrong about that, but good try.
Could have been a peaceful heresy through negotiation. And,
Neil asked, do you think the events of the heresy happened if Big E had made the same effort to communicate with the legions / make an appearance or two, or was it always going to happen?
I think that there's definitely some things that the Emperor could have done differently that would have, but it's hard to know, right? Because like part of the reason that there's so much secrecy is because of things like the warp, and once you know about the warp, there's taint,
corruptive just by knowledge.
So like you could be true, or it could have just made the warp taint worse. Yeah, or like because you never know, right?
Yeah, it could have just been
that's an interesting one.
A flawed strategy.
You know, we're all married men, and I find in my relationships communication is key. We are talking 40K, so maybe the opposite.
Spoke when spoken to.
Yeah. I think, you know, the Emperor, I've talked about this before. I think the Emperor knew what he was up to the whole time. I think he knew the heresy was going to happen. I think he was trying to ascend. I think maybe there was some things that got fucked up, like the Webway project maybe wasn't supposed to go quite that direction, but I still think the Emperor was intentionally kind of setting things up the way they needed to be.
Counter argument. We're also talking about how Malcador is so influential. How much of this could be his fault of like meddling and, you know, the Emperor trusts Malcador. Hey, can you run my Imperium while I work on a big project? No one can interrupt me while I do this. Super important. And then Malcador goes ahead and screws that up. So like maybe he could have explained a little better. Hey, like the Emperor's task is very important. He's not ignoring you because he doesn't care about you, although maybe he secretly doesn't.
Listen, he's not ignoring your text. He's not leaving you unread. He's just His phone broke away on vacation.
Yes. Right.
Well, yeah, it's quite possible that that Malcador could be the reason that the Emperor makes some of these decisions, because the Emperor has these certain plans that he's trying to take charge of. He's got like his webway project that he's going down to take care of, and then maybe it's Malcador's decision making that kind of makes things go the way they do. It's hard to know for some of those details.
Even just lacking that unified vision, it seems like the Emperor and Malcador, while close, while parallel lines, they're slowly dividing apart.
That is not what parallel lines do, but yes.
Close to parallel.
You can still be parallel.
Literally not the definition of parallel lines.
No. Listen, you son of a bitch. Don't make me get a fucking... Here we go, Christian. We're doing some math. You have a parallel line. And Kimura is somewhere in the middle of it. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Should we... any other thoughts?
Just really quick.
Little segment of heresy. Yeah.
There's a little Romanesque kind of touch too, with like legions becoming loyal to their war masters. Like the whole thing with Caesar kind of rebelling against Rome. Like, the Senate is like far away governing things. They don't really matter to us. We're loyal to our generals who actually fight and bleed with us on the front lines. So that's a cool kind of parallel with Horus. Kind of like, you guys are my soldiers. I fight with you. I bleed with you. Then that garners that loyalty in them to actually turn on their own empire. So just a cool little historical. I love those historical.
I like Romans from Roman times.
Yes, everyone's daily Roman thought came in today. So if you haven't thought about Rome today, there it is.
There you go. Check that box. The heresy begins. The imperial planetary governor of Istvan III, Verdius Peral, had been seduced by the chaos god of Slaanesh, whose cultists had long infested the world. Peral declared his independence from the Imperium, practicing forbidden sorcery. In response to the Council of Terra, charged Horus with retaking the planet, particularly its capital, the Coral City. This command played directly into Horus's own plan to overthrow the Emperor. Despite the 4 legions under his command, the sons of Horus, world eaters, Death Guard, and Emperor's children, having already pledged themselves to chaos, loyalist elements remained within each legion. These loyalists, comprising roughly 1/3 of each force, were often Terran-born Space Marines recruited directly by the Emperor before the Great Crusade. Under the guise of quelling the rebellion on Istvan III, Horus gathered his forces in the Istvan system. Horus devised a plan to eliminate the loyalist elements within his legions. After a lengthy bombardment on Istvan III, he dispatched all the known loyalist Astartes to the planet under the pretense of restoring imperial compliance. At the moment of victory, as the Coral City was captured, these loyalists were betrayed by a bombardment of virus bombs containing the Life Eater virus, launched from Horus's orbiting fleet. On Istvan III, the surface, over 100 companies of Space Marines from the Emperor's Children, Death Guard, and World Eater legions were deployed. Miraculously, 2/3 of these survived the bombardment, thanks to the warning from the loyalist comrades in orbit. Thus began the first battle of Imperial history where Space Marines fought Space Marine. Former commanders and brother-in-arms turned bitter foes as treachery abounded. No quarter was asked, and none was given. As the traitors rained death upon the loyalist Space Marines of Istvan III, Captain Nathaniel Garrow of the Death Guard seized a frigate Eisenstein, that's what it is, and fled towards Terra to warn of Horus's treachery. Stranded hundreds of light years from any inhabited space, Garrow and his fellow loyalists were eventually found by Primarch Rogel Dorn of the Imperial Fist and brought back to the Sol System. Upon arriving in the Sol System with dire news, Garrow, his fellow Death Guard Astartes, and the Remembrance Euphratai Keeler, the former Luna Wolf captain Iktan Cruz, were placed in a fortress on Luna, controlled by the Sisters of Silence. There, they awaited the Emperor's judgment to determine whether they spoke the truth or were merely pawns of the Chaos Gods. Yeah, so even in this time, we haven't quite got there, but lots of people will go and try to petition the Emperor, and then Malcador gets sent once again. And this is kind of another one of those things where a bunch of people okay, we got to let somebody know that the heresy is happening.
Yeah. Is Malcador? He's kind of turning into Grim of Wormtongue in my mind, where he's like less of a good counselor.
Well,
maybe not.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. I'm just saying that's the image that's slowly coalescing in my mind.
I mean, it depends on your attitude towards it, right? Like, it depends on how much of the vision is actually the Emperor's and how much is his, right? Because if your idea for the Imperium of like a unified humanity that can fight off all these things trying to kill it is his vision, then he's not really a Grim of Wormtongue. He's not like a seditious trying to trick people in his own.
He is the king.
Yeah, he's guiding things for his own like noble, maybe
questionable.
Questionable
purposes.
I don't know. I like what he's. I think his plan makes sense, right? Like he's trying to save humanity, trying to unify it, and that's his goal. If there's some things that he has that
need to be committed, you
of
have
course.
to commit atrocities. We know he's done it before.
This is the Imperium we're talking about.
It's not the Imperium we know yet.
It's pretty Imperium-y
though. One quick thing too. Was it Malcador that also established the Remembrancers? I think it was.
Yeah, I believe it was him. Yeah, it was.
So even that aspect is kind of cool. We totally missed is that like these Remembrancers were like artists and historians and all kinds of like higher academic professions and artistic professions that were like documenting the Great Crusade as it happened. And even that whole concept like ties back to like kind of the whole Order of the Sigillites, where they're like, okay, now that we're doing current events, let's gather all the information we can to mark this momentous triumph, right? Like the founding of the Interstellar Empire. So something that we kind of glazed over there.
It's been like fucking 10 years since I read the book with Davin. I think that was the third book in the Horus Heresy.
It's probably longer, dude. It's probably been like closer to 15, man.
Yeah, you're right. 20 almost even. Fuck. But in that book, when Horus has his like corruption, he goes into that coma and he has a vision. Was the Emperor teetering on his memory, or was that Malcador kind of teetering there?
I thought it was Magnus was in his memories.
Well, maybe it was.
Yeah,
Magnus.
it was Magnus, and it was one of his other generals, Janus.
Yeah,
but like it's probably been just as long since I read it.
I thought the general. No. I thought it was Janus was Erebus.
No. Sejanus. Oh, maybe
Erebus was pretending to be him.
Sejanus. Yeah, he was wearing his face.
Yeah,
but because Sejanus was so well loved by Horus.
I just love that we caused a bunch of people to yell at the fucking radio. Oh, it's this guy! They're just fucking pissed.
I'm telling you, I tell you, it's Magnus and Erebus. I'm pretty sure those are the two.
James complaints.
Write in. If it's less than 200 characters, I won't read it.
That'll make it worth the complaint.
That's right.
Yeah. So Malcador doesn't play like a super big role in like. He's not like a frontline warrior or anything during the Horus Heresy or anything like that. And even in the beginning, I think he was just as much blindsided. Like maybe he's seen it coming a little bit. Maybe he tried to direct it a touch, but I still think it was like chaos.
As the name implies, yes.
Anarchy. Yeah.
Well, we'll see what he does with this information. Malcador the Regent. During this time, the Emperor continued his work on a secret project in the vast dungeons beneath the Imperial Palace. He seemed oblivious to the unfolding events of the heresy on Isfan III, Cal, Cygnus Prime, and Prospero. The Emperor appointed Malcador as the First Lord and Regent of the Imperium to rule in his stead while he remained focused on his hidden endeavors. No one knew what transpired within the vaults. Only Malcador had free and regular access, and none dared question the First Lord of Terra about the secret workings within. Malcador did not relish his role as Imperial Regent in the final days of the Great Crusade. Every day brought new challenges. The Space Marine Primarchs openly resented his authority, constantly questioning his right to command them and refusing to maintain contact. The Mechanicum of Mars was restless, daily demanding access to the Emperor. Even the lowly clerks and administrators of Terra needed orders repeated multiple times before carrying them out. Despite these distractions, Malcador recognized a genuine crisis was building. Warp storms hampered interstellar communications, and the Astronomicon was weakening. Entire regions of the Imperium were cut off from Terra. Horus had not been in contact for many solar weeks, and Malcador struggled to ascertain the whereabouts and well-being of most other Space Marine legions. It felt to Malcador as if the Imperium was at its weakest point in many years, vulnerable to a determined enemy. After learning of their arrival in the Sol system and confirming their claim that Horus had turned on the Emperor, Malcador went to Luna and approached Captains Garrow, Cruz, and Sister of Silence, Amendera Keel. He told them the Emperor needed them for a new Imperial organization outside the existing bureaucracy, which would utilize men and women of inquisitive nature, hunters who might seek the witch, the traitor, the mutant, the Xenos. The Emperor foresaw that the end of the Horus Heresy would cost him greatly, so much so that he would no longer actively guide mankind. He knew that the threat of chaos would persist beyond Horus's fall. The heresy had proven the Space Marines were not immune to corruption. Thus, the Emperor set plans to win a wider victory from the ashes of personal defeat. As the Emperor's closest servant, Malcador was ordered to scour the galaxy for those worthy to help save humanity's future. His monumental task was made more difficult by Horus's growing insurrection. This is how the Sigillite came to be on Luna, interwinning Garrow's fate with the future survival of mankind. Under the Sigillite seal, the future symbol of the Inquisition, Garrow was tasked with finding 7 other loyalist Astartes from both loyalist and traitor legions, utterly devoted to the Emperor and his Imperium, in body and soul. These Space Marines, called the Knights Errant, would one day form the core of the Grey Knights chapter of Astartes, the chamber militant of the Inquisition's Order Malleus. Iacton Cruz was retained closer to home, acting as Malcador's hand in investigations like the case of Solomon Voss. The Inquisition's foundations were thus born in Betrayal's fires. The Sigillite next met with Primarch Rogel Dorn in the Imperial Palace on Terra. They discussed the galaxy's portentous events. The War Master had inexplicably turned on their father and was waging war against the Emperor. That war would come to Terra, and mankind's homeworld needed to be ready. The Imperial Palace needed fortifying. The Emperor asked Dorn.
Can we jump in?
Yeah.
This is a long little segment, and we kind of just finished up the little bit about the founding of the Inquisition. So maybe let's talk about that for a sec while it's still right here.
Yeah.
So we mentioned those guys who fled Istavan 3, and they got in the Eisenstein, they went to Luna, and they tried to meet the Emperor, but instead they got sent Malcador, or Malcador heard about it and went to them. Either way. But yeah, he had this plan. He's like, yeah, there are seeds of heresy. There are bad things out there. And he needs people of inquisitive minds. Yeah, heresy abound. It's cool how this kind of happens. Like, I remember reading this when this all kind of first was coming out, and remembering if like Nathaniel Garrow, does he go the Grey Knight direction or does he go the Inquisitor direction? And we know how some of them went, but it was kind of very cool just how he takes these two very distinct organizations of fighting chaos. He makes the Inquisition and he makes the Grey Knights.
Yeah, and like later on, I don't know if you touched on it on these notes of how he like sets up the Grey Knights, puts them in that warp storm to hide them away and let them develop.
Yeah.
Like all that, he founded them pretty much.
Yeah.
I like how this kind of makes sense too. Like from a practical perspective, it's a good origin story for the Inquisition. Like, okay, we have a problem. We know that there's heresy. We need to deal with it. So we'll set up an institution to proactively find this and root it out. Yeah, it makes sense. It's not bad lore. It's pretty consistent with what's going on.
Yeah, I like that too. It's like natural.
You have this super secretive character already who's already done atrocities. So what's murdering a couple more civilians?
Committing atrocities to save humanity.
That's the nice thing about numbers. It's like once you get over that certain benchmark, there it's just a statistic.
It's like, what does it matter? What's one more body on the fire?
Exactly. Up.
I guess that's one way to look at it.
I've always been a fan of the Grey Knights, and we do have a little bit more about like he founds the Assassinorum at this point, the Grey Knights, and we do have further sections on them. But I thought let's just talk about that for a hot second there.
Yeah, no. And feel free to stop me, man. Like these are very long sections.
Yeah, man.
He's everywhere. He's everywhere, and he's setting up basically all the things you know about.
Yeah.
In 40K. Like the funny thing is how little the Emperor Like the Emperor does like the Space Marines and the Primarchs, but even then Malcador is involved. And when it comes to like most of the things that are iconic about the setting, it's pretty much Malcador. He sets them up like we talked about the Administratum. That's like the idea of the endless bureaucracy holding up this like
back then it probably
empire.
worked a little better though.
Well, sure, but like that's what I mean though. Like, he sets this up, so that's like the origin stories for all the things you think of. Like, you think of Inquisitors, you think of the bureaucracy, you think about all these the Assassinorum, all that stuff. It's set up by him, which is interesting. It's not the Emperor.
He is the Imperium. Some might even call him
Yeah.
the true Emperor.
The true Emperor.
Well, I got a crazy theory for you.
That's heresy. So,
what about this? What if he's actually Satan? I think you might like this, James.
Hit me.
So him and the Emperor is
last
Satan. It's actually him. He's manipulative. He's secretive. I got nothing. I'm just joshing you.
Yeah, that sucks. Mine was way better.
Yeah. No. My conspiracy is that he likes the Emperor just because he's a lost technology. That's my Satan be damned, I say.
That would be that's a kind of cool idea. The idea that that the Emperor is some sort of manufactured thing of the Dark Age. It's better than like the psykers all sacrificing themselves to make him. I think it's so much cooler that like humanity built this thing. It's like this is like an attempt at human evolution or something that happened during the Dark Age, and
like,
or in the whatever the times before the Age of Dark Age. Yeah, so.
In real lifetimes, we are currently creating like something like the Emperor, this all-powerful, all-intelligent creation. And to think what they could do already, in the future and stuff, it's totally plausible that there's this human indistinguishable. And then all these rumors could either like of his actual origins could be implanted, they could be fake, they could just be that mythos that has been built over the year. But
over the year,
yeah, I'm a fan of it, man. I like the Emperor as a Dark Age tech.
Yeah, that's sweet. Yeah.
The Emperor is an AI. New conspiracy.
Yeah, he was created to help control humanity, guide it, lead it peacefully. But you can't control these things, and they get out of hand quick.
That's why you never trust AI.
Destroy them always.
Every time.
Every time you see an AI, I don't care if it's your freaking laptop or your cell phone, just trash it right now.
Google Home's out the
Except
window.
not while you're listening to the podcast. Maybe wait till you're done. Wait till after the stream. I lost my spot.
I put a little space in there for you.
Did you? You want to highlight it so I can see it?
What a beautiful man. He's a giver.
One of my favorite things about Christopherson is the behind-the-scenes effort to keep him motivated on track. For decades, we went into a store called Century Box, and we went back one time, and he's like, "How do you get there?" And he had to pull up GPS, and I was scratching my head like, "Christian, we're here once a week for what's happening?"
I'm a machine, Mark.
Would you like to defend yourself?
I need to be guided.
You're early AI. You're like ChatGPT 1. Like,
I'm on autopilot most of the time.
Lucky family of yours. Did you find the spot in the notes, my friend, or how did we?
Is it X or IX?
X1.
Okay.
XI.
Yeah, we're good. All right. Let's continue our journey. The Emperor asked Dorn to return to Terra with his Imperial Fist Legion and oversee the preparations personally. Dorn, fearing failure, was counseled by Malcador, who helped him realize his true fears and how to overcome them for Terra and the Imperium's sake. Malcador was active in many ways during the heresy. Besides orchestrating the Knights Errant's foundation, which would later become the Grey Knights, and aiding Dorn in Terra's defense, he used his position as Grand Master of Assassins to attempt several assassinations of Horus. Despite several close attempts, none succeeded, and the Emperor eventually ordered the attempts to cease, still hoping his most favored son, could be saved from chaos. Just real quick before we move on there too, with Rogel Dorn and the fortification of Terra, it's really cool how they like destroy like the Imperial Palace is like the gem of the Empire. Like it's beautiful, like great architecture, like all the most expensive luxuries. And then they have to just like deface everything to like build up like bastions and defenses and gun turrets and stuff. So it was always like a sticking point to me, and like a point that they make in the stories with Dorn and Malcador discussing how they have to like mar the gem of the Empire, and it's almost kind of like a physical representation of what the Imperium is going through, from like this hopeful, optimistic Great Crusade to now,
Right, Jewel.
Yeah, to now having to like cut it out and make something practical and utilitarian and gray, right? Like,
yeah.
I just want to mention that before we moved on. Malcador later worked with the Space Wolves Primarch, Leman Russ, to assassinate Horus while the traitor Warmaster was on Molech. Malcador selected Garviel Loken, recently recovered from insanity after being retrieved from Isfahan III's ruins, to command the mission, which ultimately failed. Malcador next appeared at a council between the Primarchs Rogel Dorn, Sanguinius, Leman Russ, and Jagdai Khan to discuss strategies against the traitors. He accepted Russ's decision to leave Terra to face Horus, but tried to convince the Wolf King to stay during a chess match, admitting he had grown fond of Russ and wished the Emperor had engineered the Primarchs to get along better. As the heresy worsened, Malcador felt despair and out of his depth. His life devoted to the Emperor's cause since their fateful meeting at the Sigillite fortress was not one of warrior or general. Though sharing a mysterious psychic bond with the Master, even he was now denied daily access to the Master of Mankind. That any Space Marine Legion would betray their oaths was inconceivable to him. He couldn't understand how 4 Primarchs could turn traitor, a question threatening to unhinge his mind. But the Emperor assured Malcador that as long as he breathed, the evil assailing them would not conquer mankind. The Emperor vowed to make Horus and his followers rue their treachery.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, man, there's just, once again, so much that happens. All these characters come back. They all have their own little story arcs and stuff. I think one thing, let's jump back to. Let's jump back to, we didn't quite talk about like the chaplains and the edicts and all that kind of stuff, like the Council of Nicaea. I thought I had more in my notes about them, but maybe let's just jump back there. So the Horus Heresy happens, and like, he's already set up some of these chaplain organizations and is getting news back of like these unspeakable things that are happening. And it's just another kind of one of these foresights where, did he kind of know? Maybe he's seen it coming, and then he kind of set up the chaplain. So he's seen it was coming, but he didn't see when it was coming. So the chaplains were like an early warning device for him.
Maybe. I think like anyone would also do just proactive measures whenever they institute something as dangerous as like psykers. That
sure.
Like, yeah. It just makes reasonable sense that you have somebody watching them, kind of thing.
I tend to agree. I don't think he saw it coming, because there's elements of instability in the like Astartes program already, just with the fact that they're having these disagreements on the front lines. And so it's okay, maybe we need to have something just to institute control while we're out there, because now you're having all these rules that you need to apply on the Astartes. What can apply rules to a legion? And the only way to do that is with an internal system. So it kind of makes sense that they're going to have chaplains. They're going to put them in there to enforce those rules. I don't think it was seeing the Horus Heresy coming.
It just seems like a practical measure.
Yeah, which again is a cool way. Like, it does seem like he is a practical guy, and he's doing things that make sense, which I think is good writing. Like, things that he sets up are flowing logically from the scenarios around him. But I don't think he saw the Horus Heresy coming.
Yeah. With the chaplains and stuff, it's interesting that like even with chaplains, he still comes up with assassins and stuff. They don't quite fill the same role. Like, maybe chaplains in the legions can be assassins, for their own kin. But you got to put down the odd space wolf every now and again.
Yeah,
but
Blood Angel.
Yeah, like where the assassins are like, they'll go after everything, or like even in this, we're talking about how they went after Horus himself with the assassins. Like, that wasn't a chaplain job.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up too. Again, is like the foundation of the Assassinorium and kind of like the grim work they do. Like, even in real life, that kind of like black ops, like the president can't even know, for like plausible deniability reasons, can't even know what we're doing here. Yeah, it's just a cool cool facet.
Yeah, the assassin lord team that he puts together is cool. It's like one of every type of assassin, and then there's some type of fifth blank type of assassin. I don't fully know how to describe it, but
yeah, and then there was like the demon counter assassin, and then
yeah,
that was an okay story. In the Horus Heresy.
I know it was probably one of the worst ones in the Horus Heresy, but I kind of enjoyed it just because it was different.
Conceptually, I liked it.
Yeah.
And it was a break from like I love Space Marines, don't get me wrong, but it was kind of a little break from like too many Space Marines. Someone in the chat here asked about if the Emperor was aware of the assassination attempts. If I recall correctly, in that book, even I don't believe they thought that they would tell the Emperor what they were up to. But then I remember there being a twist later on. I honestly can't remember the details.
Yeah, it's been fucking decades, man.
Yeah, but I want to say that their decision was to not tell the Emperor is kind of where that fell. No, whether or not the Emperor knew through like psychic means or by other mechanisms, or if Malcador was lying in that meeting. Who knows?
Or he could have just been thinking practically. It's like, okay, I'm still gonna try and save him. Like I'm holding out hope, but like you're throwing out like the whole Imperium's on fire. It makes sense to try a couple things and have a couple threads going.
Have you tried killing him?
I mean, if it works, that's the end of the heresy, right? Because if Horus is gone, that kind of kills all the other traitor Primarchs are not going to lead effectively. They're all
you're going to fall to
they're all incompetent. Horus was by far the most competent traitor. So the idea that like they would have been able to form as an effective an attack if they got rid of Horus, it's basically a win. So I can't see that being an illogical move to like, I'm going to try and kill him. But like, ultimately it's like, you wouldn't expect it to work anyway, right? Like you think an assassin's going to take out a Primarch?
That's what I was going to say too, is like,
you're coming up with 100 ideas and hopefully one of those 100 will work type situation.
You're throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. That does remind me of one of my favorite scenes almost of any 40k material where an assassin gets caught early in that book and gets backhanded by a Space Marine and just destroys his face. It's just like a casual backhand by the Space Marine, and like on a human, that's devastating.
Yeah, all these guys try to creep up on the Space Marines, but they're already like, we know you're here.
But there's another scene actually in one of the Night Lords series books where they're like, there's this assassin who gets lured to a planet to take out some planetary governor, but the Night Lords have like made a trap so they could capture the assassin. And just like assassins trying to do stuff to Space Marines, it's like, these guys are highly skilled, but like when it comes to a Space Marine, it's like you're out of your league. You have to run away. You have to have like the supreme situation to make it work. And that's a Space Marine.
I was trying to assassinate a Primarch.
Yeah. I think one of like my favorite interpretations of like Space Marines is Space Marine the video game, where you're just this hulking brute. There's no cover system. You run through the fucking cover system, and every time you step, there are these stomping giant tanks essentially. And you just level down hordes of orcs, and it's just one or two guys. I think that's my favorite kind of interpretation of how deadly and dangerous they really are. You send a couple to a planet and problem solved. Yeah.
And on that note, actually, just because we're talking about assassins real quick before we jump back, there were even Space Marine assassins who tried to take on Primarchs. I think King tries to kill Fulgrim, and even that fails. Yeah. So he does get the shot off, and he does get a headshot, but Primarch physiology just overpowers headshots.
Well, eventually, Conrad Cruz, the Primarch of the Night Lords, he does get assassinated by one.
Yeah.
You know,
everyone says he let it happen.
Either way,
it's strongly implied, even in some of the
like he was so overcome by his what he'd done in history in his mind that he's just like, you know what, just end it.
Yeah,
give him the trophy. Just give that
the assassins one Primarch kill.
Yeah, exactly. Come on.
But then when they track down, they track down that assassin and killed it very easily. So it's
questions abound.
No, that one I've had candidate. It makes sense to me.
It all makes sense. It all checks out.
Don't look at
Crunch
it. Don't look
numbers.
at it.
The next part, Malcador the hero. After many solar months, Malcador and Rogadorn were finally granted an audience with the master of mankind. Their summons came just as news reached Terra of the devastating drop site massacre on Esteban V. Both men knelt before the Emperor, who sat upon a massive 10-meter-high golden throne. Behind him loomed the seal portal that the Eldari Webway, a labyrinth dimension intended to revolutionize human travel and shield mankind from the perils of the warp. The Emperor's ambitious project aimed to replicate the ancient warp gates of the Old Ones and Eldari, fostering rapid scientific and economic growth. Securing this human-controlled webway would unify the Imperium and protect it from the chaos of the warp. The warp gate and its adjoining webway segment required constant psychic vigilance to prevent demonic incursion. Initially manageable, the project's stability was shattered when Magnus the Red, deceived by chaos, inadvertently breached the psychic defenses with a warning about Horus's betrayal. Magnus's physical message not only allowed warp entities access, but also destabilized the Emperor's careful controls. Now the Emperor's entire psychic might was needed to maintain the gate, lest it become a permanent conduit for the demonic forces in Terra. Malcador was appointed to succeed Magnus on the Golden Throne, tasked with protecting the new webway sections, intended as the Emperor's final gift to humanity before the Horus Heresy began. The Emperor instructed Malcador to gather individuals of exceptional character and skill, destined to form an elite group tasked with preventing future catastrophes like the Horus Heresy. Following the disastrous drop site on Esteban V, where 3 loyalist legions suffered catastrophic losses, the situation in the webway worsened. Imperial forces led by the Legion Custodes and Silent Sisterhood struggled against endless waves of demons without the hope of reinforcements. The Emperor's ability to safeguard the Terran Gate from demonic assault remained critical. Only his unparalleled psychic might keep the gate closed, but the effort was draining. As Horus launched the Siege of Terra, the Sigillite returned from his mission to recruit the Foundation of the Inquisition, navigating through the chaos to deliver his recruits before the Emperor. Prepared for his final duty, Malcador ascended the Golden Throne, relinquishing his identity to become its new guardian. Standing alongside loyalist captains Rogadorn and Sanguinius, Malcador undertook the monumental task of fortifying Terra against Horus's imminent assault. Though a potent psyker, Malcador's mortal form quickly succumbed to the throne's demands, consumed by the effort to shield Terra from the demonic onslaught. His sacrifice ensured that the Emperor's survival enabled him to guide humanity through the dark ages ahead. Though Malcador's selfless sacrifice, the Emperor is preserved, projecting the Astronomicon into the warp and shielding humanity from the worst horrors. Mankind faced the coming age of the Imperium with unwavering faith in their chant, the Emperor protects. So the Malcador basically, he gathers people to him once again. We finally learn about the plan. He gets summoned to the Emperor with some homies, and we finally learn about what the Webway project is. What is keeping the Emperor from talking to the Primarchs? What's keeping him from talking to Malcador? What the deal is? And it's the Webway project, this form of interstellar travel where it's not interdimensional, where it's like you're using the warp. It's a different kind of sub pockets. It's like a parallel kind of almost. We need a scientist to describe it.
And a magician.
Yeah, and a magician.
No, it's I'd say it's still interdimensional, but a different dimension, a safer subdimension, right?
Sure.
So traveling across the stars, the ability to travel is super key in maintaining an interstellar empire. So this task is literally what would keep the empire together once it's established. Imagine completely being able to safely traverse the stars without having to interact with the warp ever, right?
And almost instantly do it too,
Yeah, exactly.
Because the warp is not only a dangerous form of travel, it's it's inconsistent. It could take you forever to get somewhere. It could take you a moment. And so
take you back in time.
Yeah, it's not as helpful as the Webway would have been. And how much more would it have, just because you don't have to worry about having all these psykers or navigators running around that kind of
whole industry you could just
yeah,
get rid of.
it's so much better. Like this changes everything. It could make mankind just another level.
Humans should have just interbred with the Eldar. That would have been peace.
You filthy Xenos.
Allow them
Yeah, then we would have
access to
got
the webway.
what is his name? The half elf.
Yeah,
Elrond. Elrond.
there's one in old lore too. I don't know.
Marinius Calgar was
half elven.
Oh no! It was the librarian,
Yeah.
Tigurius.
Tigurius, yeah.
Yeah, Tigurius.
He used to be. That's why he's so powerfully psychic.
He was a half elf.
Yeah.
Faking gay. I don't agree. Yeah. So the Webwave project, he sets it up. The Emperor has this golden plan. He's going to eliminate it. Then the Horus Heresy happens, and Magnus the Red fucks it all up, tries to send a message, and now the Emperor is basically contained on his throne for all time. He leaves it for a brief moment
To go fight Horus.
To go fight Horus, but like if he gets off that throne, if that throne remains empty, the entire Imperial Palace gets flooded by demons.
And not just the Imperial Palace, all of Earth.
All of Earth, and essentially, yeah.
Yeah, and then all interstellar travel shuts down because no one can find where they're going.
Astronomican.
Yeah, it's all
like it literally would just
it'd
be the end of humanity again.
Yeah. It's such a crazy thing that like the Imperium, the mechanic is built into the throne like a dead switch, where if this throne breaks, Terra blows up. Like they can't let Terra get flooded with demons. It's if the throne fails at a certain point, Terra is going to explode. And that's the victory of the Imperium, I think.
A lovely Pyrrhic victory.
Not Terra.
Every time. What else does he get up to in this little section here? He hops on the throne, so we get to that little segment where the Emperor does leave and Malcador gets on the throne, and he manages to contain the energies for a hot minute, just long enough to...
Only the Emperor can do.
Yeah. Just long enough for the Emperor to go up to the Vengeful Spirit, fight Horus, kill him, and then return. And then he had one final little gift for the Emperor, just his last little vestiges of strength, his psychic might he gave to the Emperor, and then he just disintegrated into a cloud of smoke. Dust.
Warp dust.
And now you can buy that on Amazon and snort it for $9.99. True Emperor warp dust.
True Emperor warp dust. That's the model for Malcador. If you want to go to Games Workshop, it's just a pile
of sand.
Oh,
you can model that super easy. You can do your own Kit Bash version.
Yeah,
Malcador.
They've never
go buy a pot of Xandri dust, and you'll get it going.
They never released a model for him, have they?
No. I did include in our slideshow a bunch of conversions of models that people made up. There's some good ones, and some are kind of hokey, but it's all right.
On that note, too, Malcador is a perpetual, right?
Yeah.
So is he truly dead? Is he dead because he chooses to be?
Well, there's some ways of looking at it, right? Because like, is it possible for because Horus was ultimately killed. Like, there's no Horus coming back. He's obliterated. Is it possible? I could imagine that possibly what Malcador did on the Golden Throne could be like a similar soul
destroying.
Yeah. It Nilos you.
Like even Sanguinius during that battle with Horus was like completely destroyed from existence type thing. So it is possible to kind of will get wiped.
I'm gonna revisit this when we get to our closing thoughts, because I have some thoughts.
Okay, yeah, we'll revisit the whole perpetual thing then. Yeah.
Well, maybe not all perpetuals, but is Malcador specifically.
You have your rant and I have mine.
Okay. I'll see you at the end of the podcast.
The end. But in his sacrifice, he is able to get that horrific victory that we love in the Imperium, and the Emperor gets placed back down, and all things are back to where they should be. The Emperor can now go into a psychic form, go find the farmer's wife, take care of business.
The process nature returns to normal.
It sure does.
Well, he's got to make all those little golden children.
Star children.
Yeah, the star children. He's got to make those. How else are you gonna get them?
Yeah. So this that's kind of his life. We're gonna jump into some of the organizations that he's founded. Like even going through, there's a lot, but I think some of the key ones were like the head of the assassins. That comes up so often. The foundations of the Grey Knight, obviously, and I think we kind of talked enough about the administratum. We get the idea of paperwork stacks.
You can never talk enough about the administratum, sir.
Do you have the correct form for me to fill out to talk about it? Because I'm not talking till I get that form.
It's being faxed to you as we speak.
Perfect. I don't have a fax machine. But...
It'll be hand delivered.
So the head of the assassins, Malcador the Sigilite, in addition to his critical administrative roles as the Emperor's regent and advisor during the Great Crusade, and the Horus Heresy, played a pivotal role in the establishment of the official Assassinorum with the Imperium of Man. The clandestine organization was founded with the specific purpose of identifying and eliminating threats to the Imperium with ruthless efficiency. As the first Grand Master of Assassins, another fantastic title he has, Malcador oversaw the initial formation and structuring of the official Assassinorum, setting in motion its protocols, methodologies, and selection processes. The assassins themselves were chosen from among the most skilled and loyal subjects of the Imperium, subjected to rigorous training and augmentation to become formidable agents capable of carrying out the Emperor's will without questions. Under Malcador's guidance, the official Assassinorum became an indispensable tool for maintaining the stability and securing the Imperium. Its operatives were deployed covertly across the galaxy, targeting individuals deemed too dangerous or heretical to the Emperor's vision. Their missions ranged from elimination of traitorous commanders and cult leaders to neutralization of Xenos threats and other enemies of the Imperium. Malcador's dual role as both the Emperor's right hand and the architect of government and defense, by establishing the secret and deadly organization, he ensured that the Imperium had a swift and lethal response to any threat that could undermine its unity and endanger its survival. Malcador's tenure as the first Grand Master of Assassins cemented his legacy not only as a key figure in political and strategic arenas of the Imperium, but also as the founder of an organization that would wield significant influence in the shadows of the galaxy for millennia to come. His foresight and determination in creating the official Assassinorum reflected his unwavering commitment to protecting the Imperium and preserving the Emperor's grand vision. It's very interesting. Like, so he comes up with like the whole project of the assassins. Like, it's not just let's make this some assassins. You give me some guys, and we'll send them out on missions. Like, he comes up with the protocols, methodologies, and selection processes.
Yeah.
So the four. I think there's actually more than four. There's four primary assassins, and there's a couple sub assassins. But he came up with each one of those and how they would operate and all that. Pretty cool.
Would be, yeah. Yeah, like he really made it. Like, it's the same guy. He didn't just like delegate it to like, this is kind of the general idea. Some other grunt does the paperwork on how to make it work. He's like, no, I'm gonna lay out the entire way this is gonna work.
Yeah, and assassins are no slouches. Like, obviously assassinating Primarchs and assassinating Space Marines is like one thing. But like, these guys have ridiculous abilities. They have ridiculous technology. They're able to get wherever they need to get, or like target specific threats with great ease. And like, it makes sense too. Like, if you had like a planetary governor, you're like, oh, this guy specifically is like, the planet isn't going to rebel, but this like governor is weak. You can just kind of nip that in the bud right away without having to like exterminate a whole planet. Like, it's
you can,
but why would you? Like, that they're
Munitions
an
are
effective
expensive.
team. Yeah.
It's not about the people. It's about saving on.
Well, yeah, you only have so many. The planet. You need the resources. You don't want to.
You don't want to bring in new population.
Listen, boys, there is only varying degrees of guilt in the Imperium. So
that's right.
Yeah,
it is interesting too. Like, so there is a very specific role, like you said, assassinating planetary governors. That's key. That's like their main thing, where they're not out there assassinating psykers. If we break down some of the Imperial organization, we got the Emperor, we got Custos, we got Sisters of Silence and Malcador and Assassins. So those Sisters of Silence, they're actually the ones that are kind of the direct top tier ones that go after, rogue psykers or, that kind of warp influence. They do have a couple assassins that can do that kind of stuff too. But like, once again, it's Malcador knows what he needs to accomplish. He has a vision of how he's going to get it done. And then he targets that and he creates an organization specifically to do that.
Yeah. And I do think back then too, there was a little more interplay between organizations. They've obviously over, the millennia has become siloed and less effective than how they were maybe initially conceived. But back then, like, I believe like the custodians were pulled into meetings with like the head assassin table and stuff. Yeah. So yeah, like it would make sense. Like, okay, you're putting together a strike force.
The High Lords of Terra has the custodes and the assassins and the mechanicum there. So like, there definitely is that High Lords of Terra where they're all there, all those key figures.
Sure, they know what each other's doing, but there's less incentive for them necessarily to work together. Like they might all have their own agendas. Mm-hmm. Whereas back in the day, it's like Malcador and Constantine Valdor. They're talking. They're like coming up with plans together. If they need to, assassinate a high-level psyker, they probably would send like an assassin backed up with some Sisters of Silence or vice versa.
I think you could probably sum that up in just the fact that it's a new organization. Like it just hadn't got its own feet yet, and you're directly being managed by the founder. Original creator. I think founder's a good word. Yeah. So I don't think that necessarily is like it. They seem to switch pretty quickly into their own like entity. Subset. Yeah, they're doing their own thing pretty much right away as soon as the Horus Heresy is kind of wrapped up. It's not like I don't think that is necessarily an evolution. I think that happens pretty much right away. It's just the fact that this is a brand new thing, and now they're being involved.
Yeah, maybe there might be a small shift. Like, okay, let's stop assassinating so many of our people, and let's maybe go
kill some other bad guys.
Like now that the Horus Heresy is over, we don't need to assassinate our own kin. But yeah.
It also kind of speaks to how organizations evolve and become their own entities, and they like self-perpetuate, which is always interesting when you see like in governments and stuff, when you found a new office and like even if it has a very niche task, mission creep just like takes over and like this thing just starts self-perpetuating and looking for reasons to exist because it's almost like a living organism that doesn't want to be like, no, you've served your purpose, you're disbanded. They always look for excuses and to expand their influence and power.
The one nice safe check that Malcador put is, I think, to call a hit out on somebody, you have to get the approval of the High Lords of Terra. So the assassins aren't just calling hits out on people by themselves. Like, it's a very specific thing. Yeah. But, having said that, the High Lords of Terra might get a list that's literally 100 pages and they just sign the bottom and then 10,000 souls are lost. Like...
That I imagine is how the Imperium functions a lot more.
There'd be no way for them to actually vet like in a reasonable way. And from my understanding, the way the High Lords of Terra work, it's not like a super committed group of individuals to their craft. They're like, the assassins say we want to kill these people, and they're like, okay, yeah, whatever. That's
where's my coffee?
It's a rubber stamp.
Any of our names? No? Okay, go for it.
That's.
I keep petitioning to get James on that list, but they keep rejecting.
I'm buddies with Malcador. You can't separate us.
Can't do it. The assassins are cool. I realized we never did like an assassins episode in the first 100, so that's going to be a sweet episode to really.
We haven't.
No.
Oh, sick!
It's going to be a great one.
I'm glad I came back then.
Yeah.
But it was your last episode and you can't.
Oh, damn.
That sucks.
I don't know how you keep creeping in. Like, where are you finding these links?
I don't know. You've got to stop publishing them online.
That's my feed pics folder. You keep getting in there.
I got viruses everywhere. Next group, Mark's favorite. Almost should have switched these so you could read these ones. But the Foundation of the Grey Knights. Malcador's conviction led to the pivotal decision by the Emperor, the creation of a new breed of Space Marines tasked explicitly with combating the Warp's myriad threats. Reflecting on the original legions Astartes, the Emperor acknowledged a critical oversight. They were designed to combat physical threats, not the insidious dangers of the Imperium. The Emperor had underestimated the ease of which the ruinous powers could corrupt his most potent servants and interact with the physical realm. The new corps of physical Space Marines aimed to rectify the oversight and safeguard humanity from the Warp's malevolent influence. Among the 12 individuals Malcador presented to the Emperor before the Siege of Terra, 8 were Astartes drawn from both loyalist and traitor legions. Notable figures included knights errant like Tylos Rubio, Macer Varin, Janus, Epimetheus, and Chiron. Mortal representatives included former Iterator Chiral Cinderman, former Remembrancer Lemuel Goemon, and Silent Sister Amandera Kendall. The Emperors approved Malcador's selections, signaling the project's continuation. The group was divided. The 4 mortal lords would lay the groundwork for what would become the secretive Imperial Inquisition, while the Astartes accompanied Malcador through the webway portal to Titan, the moon of Saturn. Malcador used his powers to shield Titan from the chaos engulfing the Sol system during the Horus Heresy. There, the Astartes found a fortified monastery stocked with supplies, vehicles, and gene seed rumored to be of the Emperor's own creation. The fortress monastery on Titan housed thousands of psyker aspirants, sourced from across the galaxy, and remnants of the loyalist legions. These warriors would form a new type of Space Marine force, organized not as a legion, but as a smaller elite chapter, named the Grey Knights. Janus, chosen by Malcador, became the first Supreme Grandmaster of the Grey Knights. As Malcador departed to fulfill his final duty, he concealed Titan within the shifting and materium tides, shielded it with the macro gellar fields and protective sigils until the 32nd millennium. Emerging from its hidden sanctuary, the Grey Knights, now a formidable chapter dedicated to combating Chaos's demonic threats, reached out to Inquisitor Laston Nemigan Veritas, formerly Krile Cinderman, to signal their readiness to join the fight against Chaos. Following the War of the Beast, they became the covert chamber militant of the newly established Order Malleus within the Inquisition.
Cool.
For more information,
Malcador
watch
is
the Grey
so
Knight episode.
powerful. Yeah. Yeah, I love the Grey Knights, man. They're so cool. Such a cool organization. And
Yeah,
how they
boys,
start this super secret, like no one's supposed to know about the Grey Knights. Even in 40K, they're not really a common knowledge thing. And just even with their origin, Malcador took an entire planet, and how astropaths and navigators would take a ship and toss it into the warp and protect it with a Geller field. He did this with a fucking planet.
A moon.
That's no moon.
Oh, that's a dwarf planet.
Yeah, no, like
Well,
the Grey Knights are so excellent. Like they're so over the top. They're so powerful. The idea that they come directly from the Emperor's gene seed is super cool. Although I'm not sure how we had the time to do all this when like it took so long to get the normal Stars program going. But whatever, that's fine. They're ballers, and you gotta love the Grey Knights. They're just like everything about their lore is just dialed up. Like Astartes are turned up to 11, and these guys are just dialed up Astartes, and it's awesome.
Yeah. I just kind of picture like this superhero movie where all the superheroes get to go to their base for the first time and check out all the gadgets and shit. And like, just imagine Malcador and these Knights Errant when they first get to Saturn, and they're just walking through the fortress halls. The walls are still bared, like ready for banners and stuff, ready for new combat victories. But like every room's just this new treasure or like new thing to see. It's such a cool place.
Yeah. It's also cool. I like to picture like the Sisters of Silent have been like for decades been like rounding up psychers and like going through them, screening them to become potential aspirants as future Grey Knights, and then just kind of like kept in stock waiting.
Yeah. And the cool thing too about Malcador is he's always like, as we've gone through all these things, he's like, okay, I have a problem. It's this. And then he just creates the perfect solution to it every single time. And that's one of the cool things about him. He's like, okay, I have a problem with like specific individuals causing insurrection in the Imperium. Okay, I'm going to create the assassins. Oh, I've got this new problem of like spiritual demonic possession. Okay, I'm creating the Grey Knights. And he just has all these resources that he can just make it happen. And I guess he's like the opposite of what most of the time is represented by Imperial political movements. They're like, oh, it's slow, it doesn't act effectively. But Malcador, he's like, oh, I got a problem, I got a solution, and I'm making it happen, and it's going to get everything it needs.
The solution is always more bullets.
Yes, well,
it just depends. Are they magic bullets?
These
or
are
are they
mind bullets now, so.
Yeah, no, it kind of just shows like how how functioning things would have been during the prime of the Imperium, where things were working, things were operating, systems were being set up to tackle problems, and then just over the 10,000 years, it's nothing like what was set up.
Or if just like the people that were effectively running the Imperium were allowed to continue to do so, they would have done, like, if Malcador hadn't been roasted on the Golden Throne, think of how effective the Imperium would have continued to be.
Malcador continued as the Regent.
Yeah, wouldn't that have been a weird kind of plot twist for 40K? Let's dive down that thought, where the Emperor essentially, he gets locked on the Golden Throne. He can't leave. So then Malcador is like the face of the whole operation then, since he can actually go places. So it would have been, crazy if, somehow he did survive and he becomes like the true face and runner while the Emperor is just strapped to his fucking throne.
Yeah. If all of the way he sets stuff up is any indication, it seems like the Imperium would have just, at least at the very top level, because like the lower levels, who knows how much effectiveness he can really, like, he's only one person still, even though he's super powerful, he still can't manage like every day-to-day thing. But like, at least when like crisis level events happen, he's able to create, like, maybe if the Tyranids had shown up and Malcador was around, he would have like, okay, I need a specific solution for this, and he would have created like the anti-Tyranid task force or something.
More bullets.
It'd be something specific though, because that's the way he does things. He's got like,
it'd be tailor-made to deal with the problem.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I think that solution, he kind of virus bomb all the planets. Once again, we go back to the bullet solution. Tyranids can't eat if you virus bomb the planet.
I do think we're seeing elements of what you're saying with Malcador with Guilliman, because Guilliman is the current regent of the Empire, and he is still a superhuman. And that's a good question. Is Malcador a better administrator even than Guilliman himself, and like is actually able to keep this empire functioning well, whereas Guilliman can do a better job than what used to be? And like, he's inherited a lot of tensions and stuff too, right? Like, he can't just come in and be like, I'm the Emperor's son and do what I say, because there's that, he does play with that idea of like the church also has a say now, and like all these institutions that have been around forever, he doesn't want to split the empire again.
Yeah. So what do you say if the church has to go away?
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't want to ignite a whole war again.
Well, I think there's a difference between Malcador's skill set and Guilliman's. Guilliman seems to be more like a logistics guy, and like, I know that they talk about the Ultramarines in general just being good governor people, but it seems like every time I've read something where Guilliman's in it in like the 40K era, it's typical. He's like overloaded with like all the different things he has to take on, but he's trying to manage the politics of what's going on in the Imperium, but he doesn't really seem to care about it. He's like, if I have to deal with this thing, I will. But he's really concerned about like logistical issues. Like, okay, there's a war over here. I got to get resources here. I have to interact with these people to get that done. Okay, fine. But that doesn't seem like his primary focus. Whereas like Malcador does seem to be like, I'm setting up these systems. I want this government system to like do all this stuff. Like, that's what I'm building. So I don't see them doing the same thing.
There's like that creative difference where Reboot Guilliman was maintaining while Malcador was creating. So even though both of them are probably, fantastic, if not equals on like the logistics side, if you don't have somebody taking that creative step to kind of, or the problem solving step of, this is actually a problem, we can't just kind of ignore it.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, maybe Guilliman's living in an era where all you can do is start plugging holes, and that's what all he can do. And so maybe even Malcador wouldn't be able to be like, oh yeah, I can just command the resources to build myself the Grey Knights. Maybe he wouldn't be able to do that even in 40K, but it does seem to be a difference in style. I don't notice Guilliman doing that, but that's just, again, in 40K at least.
Yeah. No, I like it. I think that's like, we kind of had the conversation of who's better, Magnus or Malcador, who's better, Reboot or Malcador. But I think in either way, I give it to Malcador.
He's the reason the Emperor trusted him as much as he did.
He's just passionate about paperwork. The man likes his file. What can you say?
He's a bookie.
Yeah. Next section we want to jump to?
Yeah, I just did the last one. You want me to keep going?
Yeah, okay. Appearances and abilities. Clad in humble, priest-like robes akin to those worn by adepts of the Imperial Administratum, Malcador appeared outwardly as an ordinary member of this esteemed body. Despite his unassuming appearance, a slender elderly figure, he possessed unparalleled psychic powers, ranking him as one of the galaxy's most formidable psykers. What distinguished him from his peers with the Astronomican Administratum was the commanding psychic aura and his staff, topped with a golden imperial aquila wreathed in flames, the symbol of his authority as the first lord of the Imperium and regent of Terra. Widely regarded as the second most powerful natural-born psyker in human history, eclipsed perhaps only by the Emperor himself, Malcador possessed extraordinary telepathic and telekinetic abilities. His physical and mental resilience were equally exceptional, evident in his survival of the direct assault of the formidable Primarch Logar on Monarchia, a feat that would have proven fatal to any man of his apparent age and stature. Beyond his formidable psychic talents, Malcador also enjoyed an extended lifespan far exceeding that of ordinary humans, having lived through countless Terran centuries prior to his fateful encounter with the Emperor of Mankind, which occurred before the onset of the Unification Wars. Yeah, he's like that classic hooded priest archetype, always leaning on his staff, and if you ask him a question, he's going to give you a riddle.
Yeah, Merlin, Gandalf, like...
Yeah. Okay, this is like a total digression here, but I have this, maybe I heard it somewhere or maybe it's my own theory, but I have this idea that like the origins of why we associate staves with power, like, and wizardry is that like proto man, when he's like, when you pick up a stick, you somehow become stronger. Like when you hit something, you get that mechanical advantage. And that's true. Like magic. Like, how does that happen? Like if you're
when
like,
I hit something with a stick, it dies.
Well, if you have like no concept of like physics or like, or the math behind that, how is it that like, if I pick up a club, it has more weight to it than something if I just use my hand? There's an element of like power that comes from the stick and it's just this weird magical thing. Like, how does that happen?
You can see it, in children, even in modern day. You know, what boy doesn't run outside and pick up a stick to make it into either a gun or a sword to feel more powerful? You know,
there's maybe something intrinsic. There's something intrinsic about the idea of a staff being like the most close thing we can get to like just magic. And if you like super deconstructed, it does kind of seem like magic. Like you have this tool you can make that just makes you more powerful, and that power just comes from just the holding of it. So anyway, complete diversion, but
no, I really like that. I kind of like diving down the how do humans actually operate kind of thing. That's fun. Staffs,
anthropological
that's right.
This is a much better take than some of the other ones you've had. I'll give you that.
Hey, I maintain the Imperium is hell. it's still good.
Well, I maintain that the staff is actually an extension of the phallus. So
it could be both. Why not both, Christian?
Yeah. It's kind of funny. This image of him, you know, that wizard archetype, and how there's that frail leaning on a staff, but there's still the amount of power behind it all and respect that is just kind of garnished with this simple look of a staff and robes.
Yeah, and weak, frail external appearance.
And especially when you think like, okay, so let's play who is the best drip in 40K. Like, you know, you line up some of the Primarchs and their armor, and it's adorned and bejeweled, and that guy has 87 skulls on him. And then you flip it to Malcador, who's like
basic
burlap sack man.
Well, it's almost an element of like he doesn't need to impress you. Everyone is like his psychic ability alone you can feel. Yeah. And so there's almost an element of he doesn't need to impress you, which is odd though that even the Emperor has the need to like wrap himself to like do, but like Malcador doesn't, which kind of does give him that vibe of like the power behind the throne thing again. Like maybe it is his vision and the Emperor really didn't have all these ideas. It was like Malcador whispering in his ear the whole time.
Yeah. Well, like, you know, the Emperor is like, okay, I need to make super soldiers. He's not the one crunching those numbers necessarily. He goes to the labs in the Himalayas and the labs on Terra he needs all these other people, you know. to do some of those crazier scientific things.
Someone has to do the dirty work. It's not going to be me.
I think he's the lead behind the scenes, or at least was, for sure.
Yeah. Themes, cultural impact, and lessons. Themes: loyalty and service. Malcador epitomizes unwavering loyalty and dedication to the Emperor and the Imperium. Despite the immense power he wields and his pivotal role in governance, he remains steadfastly committed to the Emperor's vision and the protection of humanity. It depends if it's the Emperor's vision or if it's his vision that he's just realizing through the Emperor. But he is like, the epitome of loyalty for sure. And again, even back to that like friendship, like obviously he sacrifices himself. He's like, no, the Emperor is more important than me in this.
Yeah.
And then takes on sitting on the throne even at his own death.
Yeah.
Pragmatism and Machiavellian tactics. Malcador is known for his pragmatic approach to governance and defense. He's willing to make difficult decisions and employ ruthless methods, such as founding the Officio Assassinorum to ensure the survival and stability of the Imperium. You could say it's pragmatic. I think it's utilitarian to like the nth degree, where and that's how the Imperium operates, right? Like, it's always worth it to the ends will always justify the means in the rational calculus of how the Imperium operates.
Yeah,
I don't necessarily ascribe to that in real life, but you can see that that's the logic that drives the Imperium, and that's why they're willing to commit atrocity upon atrocity.
Okay, hold on. I gotta
fight me.
I gotta fight you, because I think there's an element that yes, that is how it looks, but I think the calculus of how you judge morality or how you do things it looks more like that, even if it's not when you're in desperation mode. So like a cornered animal has like a lot less categories of responses to things when it's in that situation. I think that's kind of what the Imperium ends up being like. It's like, what is the better solution to this? If all I have is this, it's not like I have a choice to do something better. Like, oh, there's not a lot of freedom for individuals in the Imperium. Yeah, but if you give people freedom, they worship chaos and then everyone dies. So like, yeah, kind of pragmatic, but it's like there's not really a different option. So I don't know if I necessarily think it's like that's their ethos. It's just practicality of the necessity of only having one option.
Survival.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thoughts, Marcus?
No, I think you guys are on it.
He agrees with me. Continue.
We are both right.
You're both right in your own way, for sure.
Ambiguity and shadows. Malcador operates largely in the shadows, manipulating events from behind the scenes. His character highlights the ambiguity of power and influence in the Warhammer 40k universe, where the line between heroism and villainy often blurs in the face of existential threats. So, kind of talking what James was saying there is like, in the question of survival mode that the Imperium finds itself in, are they the good guys? What atrocities are they willing to commit to just survive and make it to the next day? Without getting it, like derailing the entire podcast and having like philosophical 40k.
We can get into it.
Nothing wrong with that.
We'll save it for a specific episode, maybe a bonus episode. But like it does blur the lines of like, the constant question that the fandom always deals with is like, is the Imperium the good guys, right? Like,
the answer is yes, but we don't have to go into it.
Well, this is one interesting thing that kind of is happening more and more in today's 40k meta of with new people coming in. You don't realize that the grim dark of the far future is not something we want to emulate in any way. It's not something we want to insert ourselves into to be a part of. This is not good people. The Imperium are not good guys. They don't do good things. They're bad. And we can all agree that they're baddies. But it's interesting, like I've definitely noticed, like, as when new people come in, it's like, they try to insert themselves in the Imperium and stuff. But as you learn more about what they're up to, you want some distance.
Or if you just lived in a universe where the possibility of like, if you hear something in your basement it might actually just be a horde of demons crawling through
Your bed.
and just
Like that.
yeah. So like that's if you lived in that world, the rules are different, and you don't want to live in a world where you accidentally open portals to hell all the time.
That's a real
War Master Block is saying Mark's getting it wrong. We don't want to be in the universe. This guy's a sycophant.
A part of it too is also the marketing around GW. Like they obviously have to have a poster boy that looks like a good guy for people to come into the store, and then they've started writing stories like that. Now that Gulliman's back, like now we need heroes and we need to like appeal to that.
There always were heroes and people who were like positive and heroic and good in 40K. I don't. There's always been people like that. Like
it's different now, though. I know you sense it too. Just like the way it's branded and marketed. Like
and like even the art style has changed. Christian, you talked to me about this a long time ago, where like I think the example you used was Big Hero 6, the movie, where it's like there's this kind of inflatable robot thing that becomes a superhero.
Fisher Price's Rescue Heroes is what I compare them to.
yeah. And you're talking about how like when children specifically are looking at objects, you want to make them round and bubbly and smooth.
Yeah.
Where if you look at the Space Marines like Primaris, that artwork is kind of transformed a little bit more into like the smooth, round, clean. Where back in the day it was more aggressive edges, more brutal,
gritty, darker. Yeah.
There's definitely a switch in art style.
Yeah, but it'd
be more
again. Like
I could see what that. To be more appealing,
which goes into the marketing and goes into like the storytelling, and I it's been a slow change, and that's just like kind of the meta commentary on like the whole direction that 40K is going in right now, right? Like it has gone away from that grim dark, unnecessarily cruel instances to more of a reasonable middle ground, and it's slowly edging in that direction.
Yeah, 40K makes
it's
me
just an observation. I'm not wrong.
No, it's too much. It's too much. We'd go too far in. I disagree with you. That's all we need to know.
Pick sides.
Neil asks, do we prefer the current art versus the older art? I personally will always, when I close my eyes and picture 40K, think of John Blanche's artwork. Go Google some pictures if you don't picture it, but that's my kind of typical 40K image.
I think, can it be both? There's elements that I really it's gonna be
there wasn't an option in the question,
because here's the thing, there's some really cool like art where it's like it's almost like, do you guys know like Rourke's Drift? There's like that British there's a British army fight against the Zulu in South Africa, and there's like lots of images of like their heroic last stands or stuff like that. That when they do 40K kind of like that, I like that art style a lot, and I think the old stuff too has like an aesthetic that's very unique.
Yeah,
and I don't know. I think that both have appealing elements to them. So I'm gonna say both. Neil, you know where to send your complaints to.
It's illegal to like two things, he says, James. So once again, jamescomplaint@hotmail.com.
You know where to send it.
You know what? Report him to the Inquisition.
I want 200 characters or more, or I don't read it.
Christian, how about you? What do you prefer?
Like when we're talking 40K, I'm not gonna lie, I do kind of side with James on this one. Where
that's right.
I do have an appreciation of the news art. I do like cleaner art personally, but I miss the gothic elements and like the, not clearly defined lines of like, Blanche's work and even some of that older stuff. A lot of the grittiness is gone. Like they used to have like heads that were like contorted into these like screaming features and like have wires going in all kind of weird places. Like all that is kind of gone from the new stuff.
Well, if you summon to the new guard artwork,
is some of that new, some of it is recycled though. Some of the new stuff. There are some newer ones that have that element. I just don't. Yeah, sure, they might carry that over. You can't eliminate it completely, but I do think that there's a part of it that's been turned down. It's been turned down, certainly. Right.
We got a question. Why is it John Blanche's art? And I think Christian kind of said it best, and it ties into 40K in general. And it's the not clean lines. It's like the blurriness. It's the undefinedness of 40K that has always really drawn me in. It's that dark corner where you're like, what the heck is actually underneath this rock and you lift it up and it's this whole fucking thing. And just like with John Blanche's artwork, it kind of leaves some stuff to the imagination while filling out other stuff. But then there's that blurry background of the tower and some weird alien that you don't know. So I think just like with 40K lore, when you focus in, for me anyways, too hard on a specific thing, I don't know if it's necessarily better. Then it's easier to poke holes into, or like just kind of, doesn't make sense.
It gives a feeling too. Like that art style is it's more about communicating emotion, almost like how you would feel if you were there. It's not necessarily about portraying a photograph.
It as it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah, but
Did
again,
you like art classes in high school, or how you?
No, I'm just this smart.
Nice, man. Very good.
Some call
good
me
genetics.
An artist. Yeah.
No, I think they call you autistic, Christian. But...
I can be both.
No, that's illegal.
We've already can't be two things.
Can't be two things. What a derailment. Do we want to get back to where we were first?
Yeah.
I've lost my place again. Take it over.
Symbol of sacrifice and service. Malcador's ultimate sacrifice during the Siege of Terra, where he expended his life force to aid the Emperor in fighting Horus, cemented his legacy as a symbol of selfless service and devotion to the Emperor. Like, only in death does duty end. Like, that's a very prominent 40K saying, and Malcador brings it home.
Yeah, he is the other space Jesus. There are many space Jesus. Is that the plural? Plural of Jesus.
I hate that. I'm gonna have to start saying that to my mom though, for sure.
The plural.
Oh man. Learned lessons. What can we learn from old Malcador? Leadership in crisis. And I think, James, you've been saying this a lot, where it's just leadership in crisis. Something happens and he's got a solution. Malcador demonstrates the importance of decisive leadership during the time of crisis. His ability to navigate the treacherous waters of the Horus Heresy and maintain cohesion with the Imperium serves as a lesson in leadership under extreme pressure.
Is it a lesson, though, or is it just all problems can be solved with more bullets?
Well,
is that how you want your company CEO to run the show?
They have different bullets for different problems.
Some are rubber if you're just being an annoyance.
I guess, if you don't want to kill your target.
Yeah. I think we can ask ourselves what made him such a good leader. Yeah, he came up with problems and stuff, but I think, when you look up to a leader, you have to respect them first of all. And the next thing is they actually have to be powerful. Like, if a guy comes up to you and he starts threatening you and he's fat and lazy, who fucking cares what he thinks? It's not the thing. So I think you need those two elements, and that really what makes his leadership valuable is that he's got the respect of people. People seek counsel from him. He's got good advice, but then also he's got the psychic might to back up some of this stuff.
Well, I think to expand on it too, I think he was like, at least from what I understand of him, he doesn't seem like he's corrupt. Like, he has a vision for humanity and what it should be, and it seems like a positive vision, and he's willing to die to make it happen. That seems like he is a good leader for that reason alone.
There are lots of people who believe in their convictions to the point of death that he would argue are not good leaders.
Right, but I'm meaning specifically not corrupt is what I'm going for. Is like the idea that he doesn't like even the fact that he's dressed not extravagantly is like, I don't need to personally aggrandize myself. My goal here is the
bigger picture.
It's the goal for humanity that he's trying to accomplish. So I think that you can make a good argument that isn't corrupt in at least the fact that he is willing to go for his mission and not get distracted by, I don't know, whatever things
selfish
might come
interests.
up. Exactly.
Yeah. So while the Emperor had like a pragmatic approach to the way he did things, he also, like you said, Christian, is very utilitarian with his ethics. So how he does things might be kind of slightly different than how he kind of formulates it. The founding of the official Assassinorum raises ethical questions about the use of extreme measures for the greater good. Malcador's decisions highlight the complexities of utilitarian ethics in a universe where survival often justifies moral ambiguously actions.
It's better to die with honor is what I always say.
I mean, if the question is like human extinction, though, on the other side of it, that's it becomes harder.
Are you better as a human or a common animal if you'll do anything to survive?
I I'm not saying what I would do. I'm just saying
what the Imperium would do. When the question is your entire species gets exterminated or you do action A, I feel like it's at least more difficult than.
Well, you two guys are already fathers, and I'm about to be one in a couple months. And one of my fears about being a dad was, what happens when the government comes knocking and makes you do something and your child's on the line, and now you have to make that tough choice, and you don't always get to make the easy choices, but ultimately we're all put in the world and we have to make choices, and you're going to be forced to make tough ones, I think.
If you're asking personally what I think it's better to do the right thing and not consider utilitarianism, because ultimately you just end up that is short term. Long term,
what wouldn't you do for your child, and what wouldn't Malcador do for the Imperium? There's that same drive.
Yeah, the Imperium is his baby.
Balance of power and influence. Malcador's role as the Emperor's confidant and advisor underscores the delicate balance of power and influence in the Imperium. His ability to wield authority without seeking personal glory serves as a reminder of responsibilities that come with leadership. Leaders eat last.
Leaders sit on the golden throne.
Read it. Get turned to dust. So that's the nice thing. So he sets up all these organizations, and then we know the names of people that he then put in charge of this organization. He definitely delegated power to people and put the best people in position. Yeah. I guess that's kind of the notes that we have here. Malcador, what an interesting fellow, hey? I guess my closing thoughts on him, before we kind of ramble about other things, is he might seem cool, but let's face it, he kidnaps people, he executes dissenters, he rules with an iron fist. If you kind of don't agree, you're kind of getting pushed away. But ultimately, no wonder he and the Emperor clicked. Seemed like right on track. I personally really like the idea of Malcador looking at the Emperor as a greatest piece of lost technology that he is guarded to protect. That whole kind of thing really flipped my idea of what the Emperor is, and kind of really flipped what Malcador is. He is a protector of ancient relifacts. He's known for having the fucking Mona Lisa. So when we look at the Emperor, what does he actually see the Emperor as? Sure, the Emperor sees him as his friend, Malcador as his friend and advisor. But what does the Emperor or Malcador see the Emperor as? Is it friend? Is it tool?
Yeah. A tool, always a tool.
Yeah, you're the sum of the 5 people you spend your time with. So does the Emperor get all these ideas of Astartes being tools because that's how he's being treated by Malcador?
Oh, you're getting too deep, Mark.
Okay.
3-dimensional chess.
I'll dial it back then.
No. I love this. I love the deeper thoughts. I also like the term you just coined. What'd you call it? A relifactor? A relifact? Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with what you're saying. I like it conceptually. I just don't know if that is the case.
Yeah.
It is cool to the whole order of sigilites that collect relics, and what is the Emperor really? I think those are all cool, interesting questions. Certainly not canon, but and I like the ambiguity. I wish that was a question they could have explored and then just left it as a question and never really get an answer, which is, to me, is again that beauty of the haziness of 40K, right?
Yeah. Warmaster Box says, I think that at the end of Death, the End and the Death books shine light on that. I don't think Malcador saw him as a relic. We'll definitely have to do an Emperor Part 2 episode, and then I'll actually read through some of those last Horus Heresy books, and get maybe a couple more of these pictures of how people really relate in person as opposed to just kind of conceptually.
Yeah.
I've always kind of struggled with 40K lore, breaking it into 2 different categories of codex and rulebook lore, setting lore, and then novel lore and storytelling lore. And the way they kind of interact can be very different,
Yeah, and different authors can give different impressions too, which makes it even more difficult. But
yeah, but I've always been the codex kind of style where you're getting setting and descriptives of the universe more so than and this guy did this, you know.
Yeah.
But,
Okay, I have a question for you guys, based kind of as a wrap up. This episode changed kind of the way I look at Malcador a little bit too, in that I have this central question, and I wonder what you guys' opinion will be. Is the Imperium a reflection of Malcador's vision of what it would be, or the Emperor's? Because I don't think those are the same thing anymore. I think,
I really don't.
I think, and I'm not sure it's obvious that it's the Emperor's vision. I think it's Malcador only. In fact, it seems not to be at all what the Emperor
saying.
wants.
Malcador is the real emperor.
Let's talk about how many institutions the Emperor founded. The Webway Project, the Horus Heresy, or the Astartes. You know, let's talk about the Malcador, what he did. Administratum, good. Assassins, good.
Grey Knights,
good.
There we go. That's
At least
No,
functional.
I think you're onto something for sure. Where how much really is the Malcador's vision? He did it all, you know. He's the guy who went and chastised people. He's the guy who did all these institutions and set them up, where the Emperor was known for being a recluse, essentially.
Yeah. Is the Emperor just like it leads credence to the idea that Malcador does actually just view him as like a relic or a tool thing that he uses as the front man to his vision for humanity.
Yeah. Well, in a way, yeah, like we know you can't have an Astartes as your front man for the vision of humanity. So then who do you choose? Like, yeah, he would be a good choice then. Like, he's not enhanced in any ways. The Emperor always wanted humanity to kind of go into like a psychic direction, you know, that next evolution, or to just cut it off completely. One of the two. I think he wanted to.
Those are very extreme opposites.
Well, you know, you dip your toe in and you're like, how's the water feeling? Is it hot or cold? And, you know, you would approach it from there. But yeah, no, James, I think you're onto something. I think the Imperium is based in Malcador's image way more than it is in the Emperor's image.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I've been saying.
Well, howdy ho.
Well,
yeah, I just have some closing thoughts here if we're done with that one.
Yeah.
So I remember a while back in this episode, I mentioned that I would go into a little bit of my side rant. There's this thing called the King in Yellow, for those that are in current lore. And it kind of ties back to the Thunder Warrior episode, where we have this potential of Thunder Warriors who are fixing their genetic flaws and loose. And I kind of gave the backstory of my homebrew Thunder Warriors returning to 40K. Kind of for the King in Yellow options, a lot of people think it might be Constantine Valdor or someone of that caliber.
Yeah.
But since Malcador is a perpetual, and that's why I brought this up earlier, if Malcador is part of, and the King of Yellow could even be more than one person, Malcador, Constantine Valdor, any of these like people from the age of the Imperium, as it was being the Great Crusade, who have, I'm going to say the Emperor's vision just because that's what we know it as, but the Emperor's original vision for the Imperium, come back and fight the old Empire using Thunder Warriors as their shock troops. Right?
Fun. Yeah.
Yeah. That's my headcanon.
Well, like, if we're talking about perpetuals and stuff, like we have examples of Vulcan being literally like flayed down to the last atom type thing, and he comes back.
Yeah.
So, you know, if Malcador disintegrates to dust, there's still dust there. He might come back.
Yeah. And again, if we even lead this idea of like, is Malcador the architect of the Imperium? Well, now he looks at what the Imperium has become and he's like, well, this is not what I wanted. Let's start over. And we know
how do you know it's not what he wanted, though? That's kind of what I was getting at.
Because it's obviously fallen off the rails. Like,
there's corruption in it, but it is.
Look around.
But that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Is like, this is his way to clean house again and start fresh, which again kind of plays to his character. We know he's committed atrocities as part of the Sigilites, atrocities that he's even wanted like erased from history, right? So he's not beyond starting again and being like, okay, this whole Emperor project kind of fell apart. Let's start over.
That'd be interesting if that was a play. Is that
forget this Gulliman coming back garbage. Let's get me in the office with the story leads at Historic Shop.
We're gonna have like somebody who wants a complete rewrite. I think the only issue I have with that is that there's so many things threatening the Imperium, and it's beset so heavily, how would you start again without just writing it in, right? Like, okay, you want your Malcador and you got your Thunder Warriors, which are just, maybe you've even fixed them so they're not psychotic. Okay, great. So you just have Primaris Marines, but with I don't know, with different body styles, and you're gonna just do the Imperium again, but it's better being attacked by everybody.
Yeah, but then you have someone like Malcador who can problem solve and be like, actually,
then I don't understand why he wouldn't just find his way to the top of the
or just reveal himself.
Yeah,
like he's for the same problems that Guilliman coming back couldn't fix. Maybe he set all that in motion and he's like, even Guilliman couldn't fix this mess. Let's start again. I love that.
Yeah, but I like the idea. I like the idea of it. I'm just saying the idea that if
let it percolate.
We discussed how even we think that Guilliman is like not as good at doing things as Malcador is. If Malcador came back, I think he'd be able to do things just fine. And he obviously shows himself to be someone who's fine pulling strings behind. He doesn't have to be like Guilliman.
Well, maybe he's a guy pulling things behamnd Guilliman, and it's like, again, it's not working. Right. So
yeah.
Now maybe Constantine Valdor will be his new champion.
Champion. He just goes around picking people.
Yeah.
And then when they're like, you're not doing great, I'm going to put you on the golden throne.
Well, we tried the Emperor. Now let's try the Empress.
That could work, though.
New Empire. Try again. Oh, man.
Anyways, yeah. I just want to throw that out there. Last thing. Cicatrix maledictum, Malcador. Could they be related? Tinfoil hat time. Did he cause it?
No, did you hit a bong before that question? What? That's some word reaching.
Yeah. That's all I got.
Yeah, I think I learned a lot, and like you guys were saying, changed kind of how to view Malcador. You know, he is a mysterious figure, enshrouded, and does all these things, but like really, I think he's the driving force, man. And he died. He's a perpetual. What happened to him then? Like, did his soul go into the warp? Maybe since he was trapped on the golden throne, his soul just went into the webway. Like,
yeah, or it was disintegrated. I am open to that. I'm not going to pretend. Like, I've always hated the ideas of perpetuals, so anytime they can actually be killed for real is fine in my books. But I'm just working with what I got.
Yeah. No, I think death is always good, you know. And if we're bringing back characters, of course, we want to just bring back Sanguinius first.
That's right. He's the first one on the list.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's other people we can bring back.
And he's the other space Jesus. So. Makes sense.
Yeah, no. Actually, don't do it.
Yeah. I hope like Malcador stays dead if that Yellow King thing happens, whatever. Yeah, no. Characters need to stay dead. If you're dead, you're dead. Sorry, you fucked up. Just like that much.
I fully agree. That is how I want.
Yeah. Especially if they don't even have a model. You don't have an excuse.
Can't even make sales.
Oh man. Yeah, so that was that. We worked our way through our notes. We did it, boys. That was successful, I think. Fun live stream, fun hanging out with the chat room. Do we want to try to do a guest call-in, or how do we feel about such a thing? Maybe if you're in the chat right now and you want to join us, we'll talk for like a minute, so respond quick and we can maybe figure that out, how to do the call-in.
Yeah, if you're in the chat, just hit the Discord and I'll try and get you in.
Until then, do you guys want to talk about other things? I think everyone needs to, if you're still listening, throw us $1 seriously. Like, I don't want to give away download numbers and stuff, but we could get Christian and James to become Lorehammer employees, and they'd move to Panama with me, and all we'd do is just sit on the island and write Lorehammer content for you guys.
Even make a Lorehammer theme park.
We could Airbnb. I already got the Airbnb up and running. If we have all the hosts, you could come down with set up the whole fucking get go in South America.
Themed rooms, Mark. Golden throne room.
Yeah. This is our orc room. This is our Necron room.
It's like cold and like everything's like metal, like not comfortable. Golden Throne, people just like screaming in your ears while you sit there being assaulted by all your senses. Sounds delightful. Love that.
It's just
I
weird metal.
will turn these boys into content generating servitors. That's what the chat wants. So
Literally integrate us into the computers.
Exactly. That's the goal. So go join our Patreon. You can give us a couple bucks. We live stream. The other thing, we live stream every other Friday night at 8:30 Standard Central Time. So the next live stream would be on July 12th. And to be a part of that, you just go into Patreon, and then we'll send you like links beforehand, and you click on that link, and you can come join us. Listener lore. If you guys have listener lore that you would like to submit, you can submit to Lorehammer Podcast at gmail.com. Still submitting, still reading. Like almost 200 stories now. It's been fun. So keep sending that in. Christian, you want to do some shout outs?
I put my notes away. Are they written down?
Yeah, you just have to do that other podcast that you're on.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah, the one that I actually run. Yeah. Star Wars Podcast. If you're interested in Star Wars content, you can find us over there. Myself and Jordan, if you remember Jordan from the before times.
He's still alive?
Your assassins haven't got to him yet.
Fucking hell.
Yeah. You got to hire some better help.
Yeah. Christian's on every goddamn episode. Jordan's still alive.
What is... Have you been paying James to do all this?
You stop. You just got to start eating the people that you say you eat, and then we'll be fine.
I know, but it's dedication, man. Have you ever eaten a person?
It's a lot of
years.
meat.
It takes years.
James, do you have anything you want to shout out?
Yeah, as you all know, jamescomplaints@hotmail.com. That's where you send all your complaints, all your hate, over 200 characters, or I will not read it.
Yeah,
I'll read the ones that are under 200 characters. I'll read them to James.
Yeah.
Sweet whispers in my ear. I just lay him in bed and he just crawls up next to me.
The audio sucked in the last episode. These nerds are so mad at you. We've been doing Instagram posts and somebody's like, these Thunder Warriors are overrated. Check your facts. And fuck you.
Yeah.
Personal shout out to Greg 39. Fuck you. All right. So I don't think there's any call-ins, but the comment section was fantastic still. Maybe next time we'll have a call-in. Next episode, I think we're taking it in a Xenosloven direction. I've kind of been thinking about doing the Octavius War between the Orcs and Tyranids. So that's kind of the vibe we're getting. You remember that old war where they said, oh, whoever wins it's going to conquer the galaxy? What's better, an unmovable force or an unmovable object or whatever, unstoppable force? We'll find out what happened to that. They concluded it. They wrapped it up.
And it was super satisfying.
I think so. I can only imagine if CW wrote it. All right, everyone. That was awesome. Thanks for joining us. Remember to check us out July 12th at 8:30 Central Standard Time on the Patreon. James, Christian, thanks for joining us. Adios.